Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to call back to order the Pasco County Board of County Commission meeting of August 6, 2019. I would like to remind everyone present to please silence all electronic devices. Now is the time for our public hearings. And with that, P1.
P1 was published in the Tampa Bay Times, July 12, 2019.
Do we have a sign-in sheet? Do we have a sign-in sheet?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Denise Hernandez, Planning and Development. Item P1 today, just letting you know this is the first reading on this item. There's no action required by the board. We just want you to accept public comment. The second hearing on this item, the adoption hearing, will be on August 20th, 2019 at 1:30 in Newport Richey. Before you today, I'm going to read the ordinance title as an ordinance by the Pasco County Board of County Commissioners amending the Pasco County Land Development Code, Section 804, Ecological Corridors, Section 1302.2, Mobility Fees, Section 1302.4, Parks and Recreation Impact Fees, Appendix A definitions, and other sections as necessary for internal consistency, providing for applicability, repealer, providing for severability, inclusion into the Land Development Code, and an effective date. The reason why we're here is because on June 21st, 2016, when the Board of County Commissioners adopted the Ecological Corridors, also known as Critical Linkages Ordinance 1613, there were discrepancies between the version that was adopted by the board and the version that went to, that was transmitted to the state. So the proposed ordinance amendments intend to correct these discrepancies. In terms of 1302.4, Parks and Recreation Impact Fees, November 16, 2016, the BC adopted amendments to the Parks and Recreation Impact Fee Ordinance. The proposed changes before you today provide for the ability to spend Parks and Recreation Impact fees on items that were previously excluded. And in terms of 1302.2 mobility fees, there's an amendment to what is considered a multi-use building in order to assist staff with mobility fee assessment. And that's also in the definition section, Appendix A. Multi-use building is further clarified. On May 15, 2019, these proposed amendments were presented to the Horizontal Roundtable Interested Parties meeting. And on July 25th, the local planning agency found the proposed ordinance amendments consistent with the Pasco County Comprehensive Plan and recommended approval to the Board of County Commissioners. I'm here with any questions, and again, today there's no action for you to take on this item.
Is there anyone from the public? I have no one signed up for this item. Is there anyone in the public here in the audience that would like to speak to this item?
Seeing no one move approval?
It's not action.
Close public hearing is all you need to do on this one.
So I'd like to say, Denise, I'm delighted you put the splash pads in there to give us that flexibility. Great job. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you to Keith and David for this item.
Well done.
Okay. All right, next is P2, and we're going to hear P2 and P16 together.
Okay, so P2 was published in the Tampa Bay Times on June 21st, 2019. P16 was published in the Tampa Bay Times on March 15th, 2019, and P16 requires to be sworn in.
Okay. So this time you'll go ahead.
If you're, I'm assuming we're not taking that.
Or continue.
Well,
It's a continuance,
we
so-
won't necessarily need that. Yep.
Item P2 is PDD 19-1079. This is grant, also known as Grand Oaks, for the large-scale comprehensive plan amendment. This item is a request for continuance to November 5th, 2019, Board of County Commissioners meeting at 1:30 p.m. in Dade City. Item P16 is PDD 19-7351. It's a zoning amendment for Grand Oaks MPUD to an MPUD, and this is also a continuance to the Board of County Commissioners meeting on 11/15 of 19 at 1:30 in Dade City.
I have no one signed up for.
Is there anybody here for either of those items?
Seeing none, move to continue.
Well, the
time certain.
applicant.
11/5, I apologize. November 5th, 2019, 1:30 in Dade City. Thank you.
That's right.
Let me make that motion again.
Yes. I got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion passed. P3.
P3 is PDD 19, sorry.
You've got procedures to go through first. There are 2 rezoning agendas, regular and consent. Staff will present each application to the Board of County Commissioners. If staff or Planning Commission has recommended approval and there's no opposition, the application will be considered by the board without further presentation. If the staff or Planning Commission has recommended denial, or if there is opposition to the application, the applicant will be given 5 minutes for presentation. The opposition will be given 3 minutes for each individual, or 5 minutes for a group representative, and the applicant will be given 3 minutes for rebuttal. Any individual disagreeing with staff or Planning Commission recommendation, or anyone wishing to object to any condition of the rezoning may at this time request the petition be pulled from the consent agenda, in which case that application will be heard under the regular agenda later on during the meeting. Otherwise, all rezoning applications on the consent agenda will be approved by a single motion and vote. If you wish to speak to any petition, please give your name and address and whether or not you've been sworn for the record. These are quasi-judicial public hearings. The law in Florida is the mere public support or opposition of an application is insufficient for this board to take action. Please limit your comments to those criteria found within the board's land development code. Madam Clerk, would you swear them in?
Yes. If you're here to speak on items P3 to the end of the Ps, which I think now is P15, please stand and raise your right hand. Okay. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. P3?
Item P3 is PDD 197419. Don't know if you want to read the, no, publication.
Yes.
Yep.
It was published in the Tampa Bay Times on June 21st, 2019.
This item is for Gulf Coast Estates. It's for a change in zoning from C2 to a C3, and this comes to you with a recommendation of continuance to the August 20th, 2019 Board of County Commissioners meeting at 1:30 in Newport Richey.
Okay, I have no one signed up for this item. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak?
This is published as a continuance. You can just take a motion.
Okay.
Move to continue. Time certain.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion passed.
Item P4, PDD 197398 will be pulled from the consent.
It's
So
going to
we'll-
be pulled from consent and put the last of the meeting?
Yes,
Okay.
okay,
With that, we go to P5.
P5.
P5 was published in the Tampa Bay Times on June 21st, 2019.
Item P5 is PDD 197410. It's a rezoning MHC Forest Lake Estates MH LLC. It's for a change in zoning from AC Agricultural District to an RMH Mobile Home District. This comes to you with a recommendation of approval from both the Planning Commission and Planning and Development Department staff.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone to speak against this item? Seeing no one, remains on consent. P6.
P6 was published in the Tampa Bay Times, June 21st, 2019.
P6 is PDD 197413 in the name of Carmel Friendship Baptist Church, Inc. It's for a change in zoning from an MPUD Master Plan Unit Development District to a C1 Neighborhood Commercial District. Comes to you with a recommendation of approval from the Planning and Development Department and the Planning Commission.
Okay, I have no one signed up for this item to speak. Is anyone here to speak against this item? Seeing no one, it remains on consent. P7.
P7 was published in the Tampa Bay Times, June 21st, 2019.
P7 is PDD 197418 in the name of Dwight and Joyce Hopkins Revocable Trust. It's for a change in zoning from AC Agricultural and C2 General Commercial Districts to a C2 General Commercial District. This comes to you with a recommendation of approval from the Planning and Development Department and the Planning Commission.
Okay, I have no one signed up for this item. Is there anyone here in the audience who would like to speak against this item? Seeing no one, it remains on consent. P8.
P8 was published in the Tampa Bay Times, June 21st, 2019.
P8 is PDD 19CU41 in the name of KW Realty Fund 3 LLC and others, Starkey Ranch Hart Pine Business Park. It's for the sale of alcoholic beverages, beer and wine only, on premises consumption in conjunction with the operation of a retail center in a master plan unit development district. This comes to you with a recommendation of approval with conditions from the Planning and Development Department and the Planning Commission.
I have no one signed up for this item. Does anyone here in the audience wish to speak to this item, against this item? Seeing no one, it remains on consent. P9.
Was published in the Tampa Bay Times, June 21st, 2019.
P9 is PDD 19 CU 42 in the name of ABC Liquors, Inc., ABC Fine Wine and Spirits for the sale of alcoholic beverages, beer, wine, and liquor, package sales, and on-premises consumption in conjunction with the operation of the liquor store in a master plan unit development district. This comes to you with a recommendation of approval with conditions from the Planning and Development Department and from the Planning Commission.
Okay. I have no one signed up for this item. Does anyone in the audience wish to speak against this item? Seeing no one, remains on consent. P10.
P10 published, Tampa Bay Times, June 21st, 2019.
P10 is PDD 19 CU 43 in the name of A&T Florida LLC, Bubba's 33, for the sale of alcoholic beverages, beer, wine, and liquor on premises consumption in conjunction with the operation of a restaurant in a master plan unit development district. This comes to you with a recommendation of approval with conditions from the Planning and Development Department and the Planning Commission.
I have no one signed up for this item. Does anyone in the audience wish to speak against this item? Seeing no one, leave it on consent. P11.
P11 was published in Tampa Bay Times, June 21st, 2019.
P11 is PDD 19 CU 44 in the name of Pasco Ranch, Inc., Walk-On's Bistro and Bar for the sale of alcoholic beverages, beer, wine, and liquor on premises consumption in conjunction with the operation of a restaurant with outside seating and service of alcoholic beverages on a patio in a master plan unit development district. This comes to you with a recommendation of approval with conditions from the Planning and Development Department and the Planning Commission.
Again, I have no one signed up for this item. Does anyone in the audience want to speak against this item? Seeing no one.
I just want one on the
remains
west
on
side.
consent.
That's all I'm asking.
What?
Keep saying it. Need one on the west side.
It remains on consent. That's all the consent items.
We would like to move P14, if I can move that ahead.
I would
Okay.
appreciate you taking,
Okay.
take a motion on consent first.
Yes.
Move for approval.
Second.
I got a motion and a second on all the consent items. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion passed on all consent items.
And it's my understanding that P14 no longer needs a presentation, and you'd like to move that to the next item
If
on
I
the
may.
agenda.
Okay? P14. Approved?
Tampa Bay Times, June 10th, 2019.
Item P14 is PDD 19-1201. It's a large-scale comprehensive plan amendment, CPAL 1904 for Central Pasco Employment Village. What we're asking the board today is to, it's actually a transmittal of the proposed comprehensive plan amendment to the Central Pasco Employment Village Sub-Area Policies, Future Land Use 7.1.12, and we would like the board to authorize a transmittal to the Department of Economic Opportunity and other reviewing agencies.
Okay. I don't have anyone signed up for this item. Is there anyone here to speak to this item?
Seeing no one.
Approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of P14, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion passed, P14. And now we'll move to P12.
P12.
P12 was published in the Tampa Bay Times on June 21st, 2019.
Also, I would like to, because P12 and P13 are at the same location, I would like to do a combined presentation on the items.
Okay. I don't have it. Well, I have people signed up.
Yes, we do. Without, a publication for P13 is published in the Tampa Bay Times, June 21st, 2019. We do have 2 people signed up to
Okay.
speak on that.
And I think on this item, there probably have been some requests for additional time as well.
Okay.
So items P12 and P13, item P12 is PDD 19 CU01, and item P13 is PDD 19 CU39. They're both in the names of BB Agritourism LLC and St. Joe Ranch LLC. PDD 19 CU01 is for an amusement park in an AC agricultural district, and PDD 19 CU39 is for the sale and service of alcoholic beverages in conjunction with the operation of an amusement park in an AC district. The proposed use is in north central Pasco County, located on the north side of St. Joe Road, approximately 800 feet east of Bellamy Brothers Boulevard, and on the east side of Bellamy Brothers Boulevard, approximately 1,400 feet north of Bent Fork Road. Throughout the presentation, I will be at times referring to the western parcel and the eastern parcel, or a portion of the site. The western parcel is, this is worked. Western parcel is 58.46 acres. and the eastern parcel is 59.84 acres. The western parcel is undeveloped with areas of dense vegetation and mature tree canopy. The eastern parcel contains the Tree Hoppers Aerial Adventure Park, consisting of zipline courses, various rope bridge courses, and obstacle courses, concession areas, and a gift pro shop, approved under conditional use petition 12-17. Additionally, the eastern parcel hosts an annual fall festival and a Halloween haunted house with live actor-based theater and other related features and activities under temporary use permits in accordance with the Land Development Code, Section 530.9. The surrounding zonings include an MPUD, which is the former Sarin Ranch. It's has an expired entitlements. That's to the north and to the east of the property, and AR, agricultural residential, to the west and to the south. The surrounding future land use is AG, AGR, and Res 1. And recreation uses are permitted in any future land use classification consistent with the applicable goals, policies, and objectives of the comprehensive plan. Access to the site is from St. Joe Road. Only farm access and emergency vehicle access are being proposed on Bellamy Brothers Boulevard. The applicant has agreed to limit access, and this has been memorialized in condition number 2 and 3. The applicants propose a winter play park over the western parcel. It will consist of a snow tubing hill, snow play area, and other related features and activities. It will operate a maximum of 120 days a year, 2 to 7 days per week, depending on the season. The hours of operation will be Sunday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Friday and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. The winter play park will not operate on the same day as the fall festival or the Halloween haunted house on this parcel. The applicants propose a fall festival and Halloween haunted house over the eastern parcel. The fall festival with Halloween haunted house will include fall-themed attractions, including Halloween haunted house with live actor-based theater and other related features and activities which occur both indoors and outdoors. It will operate a maximum of 56 days a year, 2 to 7 days a week. Hours of operation are Sunday through Thursday, 7 p.m. to 11 p.m., and Friday and Saturday, 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. In terms of the conditional use, CU 1939 for the sale of alcoholic beverages for on-premises consumption are over the areas generally depicted on the attachment 4, which is part of your packet, which is also this area that's shown in the crosshatch, the dashed lines. That's the limits of the sale of alcoholic beverages. And they propose the sale of alcoholic beverages to be conducted during the days and hours of operation proposed in the conditional uses, CU 1901, and the areas approved on 12-17 that was formally approved by the board. In accordance with the Land Development Code, Section 305, the applicant held a neighborhood meeting on May 28, 2019. There were 32 residents in attendance. The Planning and Development Department has received 12 letters of no objection. They're memorialized in this slide, shows the location of the letters of no objection. And they're in your attachment 6. They're from four property owners that are located 70 feet west of, 90 feet south of, 470 feet southwest of, 640 feet southeast of, 800 feet southwest of, 1,300 feet southwest of, 1,650 feet southeast of, and 0.75 mile north of, and 1.40 miles northwest of the subject request. Also after the packet was, and these are letters of no objection, also after the packet was, your agenda packet was published, we did receive a letter of objection from a person who resides 1 mile north of the parcel, and I would like to see if you would please receive and file that letter.
Move to receive and file.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to receive and file. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passed.
Okay. So on this item, both of these items, staff is recommending approval with conditions as included in your packet. There is a consistency determination made. Your item, this agenda was revised from the agenda that was submitted to within the SIRE system, so you should have a pull and revise form in front of you with the new memo with the consistency review. I know that this is going to be a very long presentation, and I can go through the consistency review areas. So we found the subject request has been reviewed for consistency with the Pasco County's comprehensive plan, future land use 1.10.1, which is compatibility review. There was evaluation of existing uses of land, zonings, and future land uses, including the existing and potential densities and intensities. So the proposed use is consistent and compatible with the existing resident recreational uses of land, existing tree hoppers, aerial adventure park, zoning, future land use densities and intensities, and that is as it's conditioned in your zoning. Consideration of existing development patterns and approved development in the area. The proposed use is consistent with the existing pattern of development. Evaluation of existing proposed and anticipated transitions between land uses. The transition between the proposed uses on the site with respect to the surrounding property, it's effectively and adequately accomplished through the use of buffering. For example, in your conditions, you do have, the applicant has agreed to maintain a 400-foot setback from the western property line, also a 100-foot setback from the northern property line, and the location will be heavily buffered as shown on your agenda memo and on the attachments. Consideration of environmental and cultural features and community characters. The proposed use of the property will require an analysis and cultural and environmental impacts and mitigation if required through the preliminary site plan process. As conditioned, staff finds that the proposed use is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Appropriate timing based on the analysis of availability of adequate public facilities, including transportation facilities. It's served by a county-maintained road. Water and sewer, there's no public facilities required. The site is served by well and septic and other necessary infrastructure and services. Additional public facilities are not required at the time. Again, the proposed use, it's not urban sprawl. There are conditions of approval, including limitations on hour of operation, limitations on setbacks, specific uses having to do with the location of landscaping, heavily buffering that will protect the surrounding uses. Analysis of consistency with the applicable specific area policies. The proposed use is consistent with the Northeast Pasco rural area. Consideration of existing development patterns and approved development in the area. It's consistent with existing pattern and development and approved development in the area. And we are recommending approval with conditions as included in your packet. I know this is going to be a very long hearing, and I'm here for any questions you may have on the item.
We'll hear from the applicant first.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, it's my understanding you've given the applicant and one of the opponents an extended period of time that needs to be.
I've given the applicant 15 minutes, and those that are going to speak against this item, I've also given them 15 minutes.
Okay. So for the
How they
purposes of
divide it
timing.
up or split it up, it's
Right.
okay with me.
Oops. This one. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Clark Hobby, Hobby and Hobby, PA, 109 North Brush Street, Tampa, Florida, have been sworn. I'm going to be making a consolidated presentation for items number P12 and P13. And I have with me Justina Bushevsky from Florida Design Consultants, who will be making a planning presentation. We'll try to keep it as brief as possible. You've already had a fairly lengthy discussion from staff, but a little bit of background on this project. So we have two parcels out in the Northeast Pasco area. at the intersection of two collectors. One's Bellamy Brothers and the other's St. Joe Road. They're both in the AG future land use classification, which expressly allows recreational uses. They're both zoned AC, which expressly allows a conditional use for amusement parks. And as you were told a few minutes ago, in 2012, when the eastern parcel, which is this one right here, was approved for the zip line in 2012, it was approved as a subset of a conditional use specifically for the zip line and the ropes course that's on it. About a year and a half after that, we had an opinion letter we worked out with Carol Clark, the then zoning administrator and assistant planning and development administrator, who determined that having temporary uses such as a Tough Mudder Run and a fall festival on the eastern site were appropriate. And so that basically gave our client up to 56 days a year to have those events. It's been having them for several years now. You all have probably heard of the Screamageddon event that occurs over here. There are also hay rides and other fall events that occur while that goes on, but the Screamageddon event is quite popular and is a big tourist activity for the county and a big draw. So since that time, our client started looking at doing another really innovative project that I think is ultimately going to be a big benefit for the county, and that's to have a snow hill and snow park over on this western side, over in this area. And the client has looked at some newer technology that basically will allow us to make snow and keep snow in place when the weather is under 80 degrees. There was an article in the paper in St. Pete Times, or Tampa Bay Times, last year, I should say, for CT's benefit, that talked about this technology, and it's being used up and around Atlanta in a very popular snow hill up there that allows you to ride down with toboggans and stuff like that. And it's very interesting. Our client had a small press release that it was thinking about doing this about a year ago, maybe 9 months ago, and there were several 100,000 social media hits within 24 hours. So there's a lot of intrigue around our region about the potential use, and we think it's something that's going to end up being great for the county as a whole, and we're confident we can do it in a way that won't be harmful to our neighbors. But when we first filed for the conditional use application, it does fall within the subset of an amusement park, and it got our neighbors all justifiably concerned. And so we then spent several months working with our neighbors and coming up with a series of conditions that I think almost everybody who lives in very close proximity to this site is happy. And I'll just run down a couple of the things that we did with them. But a lot of work with our neighbors went into this, and we appreciate our neighbors, some of whom were here, working with us on it. Perhaps the biggest thing we did, even though we have a lot of frontage on Bellamy Brothers Boulevard, they wanted no access except for like farm access over here. So none of the entrants are going to come in off of Bellamy Brothers Boulevard. Furthermore, we're going to have a 400-foot setback for all structures, so everything's going to be pushed way back here. Perhaps the biggest thing, other than the setbacks and the connection to Bellamy Brothers that we've done here, what you're seeing in these thick lines here is a double row offset of 6-foot red cedar trees that we're also going to end up doing over here, and I'll explain in a minute, that's going to create basically an evergreen condition that will be a great noise and visual buffer for our neighbors and for our project. We also agreed, as you heard before, that we agreed to conditions where we won't operate the fall festival, as we're already operating it here, for more days than we're already allowed to under the temporary uses that we've been doing, which is 56 days a year. And we agreed that we won't operate these at the same time. Now, I would tell you, as a native Floridian, staying under 80 degrees doesn't happen a lot, and even though we're allowed 120 days to operate the snow hill here, something tells me that's probably going to be more like 45 days. So what you're actually seeing here is really what are permanent approvals, but for what are really almost temporary uses. They aren't going to be going on year-round, and we think we can be good neighbors and not create a major traffic or noise issue for our neighbors. We did undertake a series of studies to make sure that we weren't creating sound issues for our neighbors. And in a minute, I'm going to read one thing into the record, but we had really the state's preeminent firm, Geosonics, conduct a noise study that found that even when the Fall Festival is up and operating by itself, it still stays well within the noise ordinance that the county has. And actually, the much louder noises that are heard in the area are from passerby traffic on St. Joe Road and Bellamy Brothers. We also had Mike Razor, who's here, conduct an access management study that showed that additional operational changes or site access improvements are not needed to serve all these uses on St. Joe Road, where our sole access will be. Because again, we are not coming in off of Bellamy Brothers, so we'll use existing accesses here, and access will then cut through over to that point. I am going to ask Justina to give a short presentation to create a record here, but there's one thing I need to do, if you will bear with me. I've submitted to the clerk a very large binder with about 20 documents, and just for the record, I need to add at least a short summary of what these documents, so if you'll just bear with me. Number one, there's a transmittal with the revised application dated March 21st, 2019. Number two is the AG agricultural section of the comprehensive plan. Number three is section 503 AC agricultural district of the LDC. Number four is the definition of recreation and intensity from the glossary of the comprehensive plan. Number five is page 2A-14 of the appendix to the comp plan. Number six is the economic development sections 1.7 and 1.72 of the economic development element of the comprehensive plan. Number seven is the recreation and open space element of the comprehensive plan. Number eight is objective cons 1.1 of the conservation element of the comp plan. Number nine is 2015 Parks and Recreation Plan. Number 10 is 2019 State Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan. Number 11 is the ULI study from October 2013. Number 12 is the Goal Flu 2 of the future land use element of the comp plan. Number 13 is the Northeast Pasco Special Area Plan dated July 2005. Number 14 is Section 604, which is the Northeast Pasco Rural Protection Overlay District. Number 15 is the Noise Measurement and Evaluation Report from Geosonics I mentioned. Number 16 is the Timing and Phasing Application from Razor Transportation Consulting. Number 17 is the Access Management Study I just mentioned from Razor Transportation. Number 18 is the land use presentation summary that you're going to see from Justina in just a minute. Number 19 is a map showing our letters of no objection that's on the board. And number 20 is the existing conditional use permit from 2012, CU 12, number 17. With that, I'll turn it over to Justina, and then I'll have a quick wrap up when she's done. Thank you.
We missed you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Justina Bushevsky, Florida Design Consultants, 20525 Amberfield Drive, Land O'Lakes, Florida.
Can you please state that you've been sworn for the record?
Yes.
All of a sudden, you're vice president, too, huh?
Well, it took a while.
That's a quick
13 years, 13 years of being a planner. So that's what I'm going to go through now. My qualifications, I do have my Master's of Urban Planning from University of Louisville. Out of my 13 years of experience, I worked 9 years, as you know, at Pasco County, where I processed over 50 comprehensive plan amendments, and I was also the project manager for the Northeast Rural Area Plan Overlay and the Pasco Parks Master Plan. So as Denise already went through the introduction, but proposed is a conditional use request application to allow specific amusement park uses of Winter Play Park and Fall Festival with the Halloween Haunted House in the AC Agricultural Zoning District on approximately 118.2 acres. The future land classification is agricultural. Amusement park use is a conditional use that is listed in the AC Agricultural Zoning District. The proposed is only for the listed uses, and it's not for the amusement park generally. So my planning analysis today provides for compliance with the conditional use in the LDC section 402.3F. And there are 8 requirements that are the standards of review for these conditional uses. The planning analysis also provides for consistency with the comprehensive plan and compatibility with the surrounding area. The 8 standards of review are that the proposed use shall be consistent with the goals, objectives, and the policies of the comprehensive plan. The proposed use will not adversely affect or contribute to the deterioration of quality of life or the property values. The proposed use is consistent with the character of the surrounding area and the land use patterns. The proposed use will not create or excessively increase traffic or parking congestion. The site upon which the proposed use is located has adequate infrastructure and utilities, and the site will have sufficient screening and buffering. Also, the proposed signs and the lighting will not adversely affect the surrounding or adjoining properties, and the proposed use will not otherwise adversely affect the health, safety, or welfare of the surrounding community. So now I'll have to go through the consistency of the comprehensive plan. One of the objectives is that it is consistent, like as Denise explained before, with the future land use policy preserving the rural lifestyle in the Northeast Pasco rural area. One of the policies is protection of the topography. The existing topography of the site shall be protected with this conditional use. The applicant does not propose to cut into any of the hills. While the Northeast Rural Overlay does not apply, the subject site is not within areas identified for protection because no slopes are greater than 6%. The use is also consistent with the roadway corridor overlay district. The applicant does not propose to remove a large amount of canopy trees along the roadside, as Clark just stated, and they will be planting new canopy trees that exceed the amounts that are required by the Northeast Overlay District and the Land Development Code requirements. We will prohibit public access to Bellamy Brothers Boulevard, except for farm use access and emergency vehicle access. Also, we will be consistent with the rural residential roads. The proposed use does not create an excessive amount of traffic on the rural roads. An access management analysis was done by Razor Transportation Consultants, and it has been determined that no site access improvements will be required. Also, the use will be consistent with policy Flu 2.1.13, the applicant will rely on the wells and septics. So therefore, we meet the standards of review for number 1. The quality of life and property values. The proposed Fall Festival and Winter Park is a recreation tourism related amenity and that will enhance the quality of life for Pasco residents. Per the 2013 ULI report, tourism and ecotourism is a major economic development opportunity. The use is encouraged through the comprehensive plan and the Pasco Urban Plan Institute report. Therefore, it will meet standard of review number 2. The proposed use is also consistent with existing land use pattern. It preserves open space in the AG land use. A recreation use is allowable use in the AG future land use and does not increase residential density, and it also has minimal utilities or services required. As I stated earlier, the use will not create increased traffic or parking. The winter play park is conditioned to have limited days of hours of operation. And it can only be open for 120 days out of the year. And the Fall Festival will operate at a maximum of 56 days a year, as it presently does as a temporary use. And in no event shall the Winter Play Park or Fall Festival operate on the same day.
The 15 minutes is up.
Is it up? Okay. It meets the utilities and infrastructure, standard number 5. Setbacks and buffers, we already talked about. We have the 400-foot setback off of Bellamy Brothers. And we have increased setbacks with the double trees that exceed all the code requirements with the landscape buffers, and signs, lighting, and glare. Signage will meet all the LDC requirements, and there will be minimal lighting that's conditioned as part of the agenda memo. And pretty much, as I stated before, it is a recreational use that is healthy, tourism-related amenity, and it enhances the quality of life, therefore meeting all the standards of review. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
We need a motion to receive and file the binder that Mr. Hobby submitted.
Okay, we need a motion for the binder. that
Move
you
to receive and
submitted.
file.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have two people signed up to speak to this item.
We have first signed up is Judy Geiger, and then followed by Bob Hunter.
Name and address, please.
Yes,
And that you've been
And that
sworn.
you've been sworn.
Thank you.
Yes.
yes. My name is Judy Geiger. I live at 16225 Bellman Brothers Boulevard. My legal address is 39001 State Road 575 in Lakuchi. The
Pull
river
that
is
mic.
flooding right now.
Pull the mic to you.
The river is flooding right now, so that's why I'm living on Bellamy at this point in time, and yes, I have been sworn. I would like to present for the file a folder. I asked permission to do this. Mr. Steinsnyder, do you need to look at it first?
Yeah, it would be nice to have had it in,
I've got
but, or go through the documents as Mr. Hobby
Have a
did.
motion?
Well, we're not accepting yet, he's looking at it first,
Oh, okay.
Okay.
and then it's up to him.
That's listed.
Her time's ticking. Her time is ticking.
Time's ticking.
No, it shouldn't, this shouldn't count against her.
Okay.
So, the documents, other than the first two, are similar to those that Mr. Hobby submitted. They're letters of objection to CU 1901 and 1939. His were obviously in support. The Gladding-Jackson report on the Northeast Rural Pasco area, which would be a county document. The stipulated settlement agreement of December 2006. References to the comprehensive plan, references to the land development code, the resume of Robert Hunter. The only other ones are the Screamageddon attendance records of October 7th, 2017 through November 2nd, 2017. And the Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulation 2 COP retail beverage licenses issued to 2 zip codes. The board, with the exception of the petition, they all appear to be, and Mr. Hunter's resume, they all appear to be public documents. And I don't see, I mean, the others, it's the weight the board wants to give them, so.
Mr. Steinschneider, my only objection would be the Screamageddon alleged records. I've not seen them. I don't know where they might have come from. I'm not sure that it's a
Looks
public.
like it came from your website,
Okay.
or your client's website. I mean, that's the first time I'm seeing it.
Oh, it's not the attempt, it's the dates of operation.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
not
It is a number of yes. It says a number of yes that were there.
Yeah, in small print.
Sorry for the delay. I only have an objection in the sense of, I'm not sure that this accurately reflects the number of guests that were there. My client was saying that sometimes these are reservations for parking passes and guests separately, so I'm not sure that the guests are accurately represented on this document. That's my only objection.
I think the board can take it for what it's worth. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So,
Motion to receive and file.
I got a motion and
Second?
a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, like sign.
If you want to just
Motion
put up here,
passed.
I'll hand them out. Thank you.
Now your time will start back.
Thank you.
It's not a lifeline.
Okay. The one point I want to bring out on this, on what I handed to the board is, we do have 33 letters of objection, either through a petition or letters of objection. And I want to, the rest of my time, I'm going to yield to Mr. Bob Hunter. He is an expert witness. He has a bachelor and a master's degree in architecture, was president of the American Planners Association, is a fellow in the American Institute of Certified Planners, and he was executive director of the Hillsborough County County Planning Commission for 26 years. Your resume is in your folder, or his resume is in the folder, so I will yield the rest of my time to him. Thank you.
Okay? State your name and address and that you've been sworn.
Bob Hunter. I reside at 4111 Kipling Avenue, Plant City, Florida, not too far from here. Good afternoon, Commissioners and Mr. Chairman.
Sorry,
been
sir.
sworn?
Have you been sworn?
Pardon me?
Have you been sworn?
I was.
Okay.
I did stand up and hold up my right hand, and I said I do. I've been asked by Judy Geiger to provide some expert testimony. She stated where she lived. And I provided some overview and some comments. Essentially, I'd like to follow them pretty closely. They follow similar to what the others have said concerning the property, but I think it's important to provide them into the record. My opinion is that the conditional use permit before you for the property is not consistent with Pasco County's Land Development Code, namely 402.3F. I think here the staff report incorrectly perhaps typed in E, but anyway, under required standards, all proposed conditional uses shall meet all of the following standards. I address the first 4 of the 9 under Land Development Code 402.3F as not being satisfied or met. Starting with number 2 of the required standards, quote, the proposed use will not adversely affect or contribute to the deterioration or quality of life of the property values in the immediate neighborhoods, unquote. This standard has not been met as the proposed use will generate traffic above the current vehicles per day or current per hour measurement, essentially more traffic, road, parking dust, noise, and thus will adversely deteriorate the quality of life of the immediate neighborhood. And then number 3 of your Land Development Code, 402.3F, required standards, and I quote, the proposed use is consistent with the character of the surrounding area, including the existing land use patterns, unquote. This standard has not been met as the proposed use, a snow mountain and a haunted house, is not consistent with the surrounding area and certainly not consistent with the existing land use pattern. I say, just think about it. A snow mountain and a haunted house are certainly not consistent with the surrounding area. And number 4 of the required standards has not been met. To quote your standard, the proposed use will not create or excessively increase traffic or parking congestion or otherwise affect public safety, unquote. This standard has not been met because the proposed use will create increased traffic and congestion. While the estimated numbers of 300 or 400 cars a day do not seem like much, they are a substantial increase in the current traffic and congestion, and will certainly impact the Northeast Pasco County rural area and lifestyle that is to be protected and preserved as per the adopted comprehensive plan, your future land use element, objectives 2.1.1 through 2.1.18. And finally, going back to number 1 of your required standards, Land Development Code 4.02.3F required standards, and I quote, "The proposed use shall be consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the adopted comprehensive plan elements or applicable portions thereof." The proposed use is not consistent with the Pasco adopted comprehensive plan. Generally, the preservation and the protection of the positive qualities of the rural lifestyles of the Northeast rural Pasco County area as a passive, rural, scenic area, and more specifically, as per the future land use element of the Pasco County adopted plan. Goal number 2, protection of rural areas. Implement and enforce policies and programs designed to preserve and reinforce the positive qualities and rural lifestyles and protect rural communities and agricultural areas. Objective 2.1, preserve rural lifestyles in the Northeast Pasco County rural area. To protect the existing rural character of the Northeast Pasco County rural area and thereby ensure the rural lifestyle is preserved for existing residents and remains available to future residents. Policy 2.1.1, recognition of the Northeast Pasco County rural area. Pasco County shall recognize through land use policies and land development regulations the Northeast Pasco County rural area as an area with specific rural character. It shall be the policy of the county that rural areas require approaches to land use intensities and densities, rural roadway protection, the provision of services, environmental protection, and land development code enforcement consistent with the rural character of such areas. Policy 2.1.5, protection of existing topography. Pasco County shall amend the Land Development Code by December 2008 to include standards that would limit topographic alterations within eastern Pasco County, including northeast Pasco County rural area, and particularly along the northeast Pasco County rural area boundary, areas along the Brooksville Ridge, and areas along the Polk Ridge, in order to maintain and protect the integrity of the natural rolling vistas and scenic view sheds within the northeast Pasco County rural area. The intent of these standards is to provide limitations for topographic alterations that would remove the unique vistas of the naturally occurring berms or hillsides that protect unique vistas of the areas or functions as buffers. I apologize for having to read your plan, but I think those are important aspects. Now, changing subjects away from the Land Development Code, your Land Development Code, required standards 402.3F, all 9 of which have not been met but are required to. I want to mention the adopted Pasco County Comprehensive Plan, Future Land Use Element 2.1.8, which identifies that the county will adopt by December 2008 non-residential design standards for the Northeast Pasco rural area, but it has not yet done so. And this project is a non-residential conditional use. It seems to me that it would be difficult to consider conditioning a use for which the staff has not developed and the county has not adopted design standards for. I ask the question, what would the staff-developed conditions be judged against? However, as per staff's report, they assert that there are enough conditions, as per in their staff report number 17C, page 4 of number 11, quote, "The transition between the proposed uses of the site with respect to the surrounding property is effectively and adequately accomplished through the use of buffering and screening as provided in the conditions for approval. Considering the scale and size of the proposed development, the buffering and screening techniques provided in the conditions of approval, when incorporated into the site design, will provide an adequate transition between land uses. As conditioned, the proposed use is consistent with the comprehensive plan," unquote. Wow. Respectfully, an opinion is surfacing here that if you condition a use with enough conditions, that you can make it consistent with your comprehensive plan. Or, may I say, the use is inappropriate, perhaps location-wise, or size-wise, or impact-wise, and should not be approved. In conclusion, the staff report mentions that the subject request was reviewed for consistency with the comprehensive plan, citing policy future land use element 1.10.1, compatibility review, but does not address the specifics, the uniquenesses or impact of the Northeast Pasco rural area. Pasco County and the citizens felt this area is so unique that it directed this special area to have a special study accomplished and adopted its own set of special goals, objectives, and policies into your comprehensive plan. That being the future land use element, goal number 1, objective number 2.1, and policies 2.1.1 through 2.1.18 to protect and preserve the rural lifestyles, present and future. And the staff report did not address these with any specificity relative to the conditional use application. Thus, I recommend that you find this conditional use application not consistent with your land development code, nor your Pasco County comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Whoa. Nope.
Okay, that's all we had signed up.
That's all we had signed up.
We only had Ms. Geiger and Mr. Turner signed up. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak?
That's,
Come forward.
it's within the 15 minutes, right?
Yes.
Please state your name, address, and whether you've been sworn.
Nancy Hayeswood, 34110, a nice place. Yes, I have been sworn, and of course I've got to put my 2 cents in. Well, how consistent and compatible is snow to Florida? I guess some people think it's very compatible. I don't think this fits in the Northeast Rural Protected Area Plan. It's just doesn't fit. I loved the zip line. That was great. But the rest of it, digging a hole, building a hill, throwing snow on it, making sure everybody's got beer and wine out there, great. Our Northeast Rural Protected Area Plan was never allowed to be complete. The rules and regulations for the area. We ourselves as a group, a bunch of the people out there got together and we actually sat down and drafted some. We submitted them to Deborah Zampetti. We never heard anything back, so we've asked over the years for them to be finished. So I would ask that you drop this until we get something that guides our Northeast Rural area. It would be nice. If you could, a good idea might be, and we would love it, if you could put some meetings together for the citizens that we could help you all decide what should be allowed and not allowed out here. It would help our quality of life. Thank you. I heard at the meeting for the neighborhood that the developer of this project said that they would have corporate parties there. And I wonder if those people would bring bands in, and maybe hard liquor too. Amplifiers with bands, I don't know, I'm sure that sound would go through. I live about half a mile from a helicopter pad, and I can't sit outside in the daytime when that thing's going. Another point, one other, is that if this amusement park fails, what amusement park is he gonna put in next? I thank you all for your attention and consideration.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else here to speak? Come forward, state your name and address, and if you've been sworn.
Steve Gonzalez, 28736 St. Joe Road, and I have been sworn with the group. Raise my hand.
All right.
I don't have a problem with the business and paying, youngsters to work, and he's a capitalist, he's making money. It's just in the wrong place. Why isn't this on 301, up where there used to be a golf course, up on 301 north of Dade City? That'd be a perfect spot for this business, for this amusement park. How about US 19 in Pinellas County? How about Del Mabry in Tampa? Not in a quiet, rural, residential street like St. Joe Road. It's not consistent or compatible at all. And what we've already had to deal with on St. Joe Road, I don't know if this board is aware of the cannon fodder we had all last year from the blueberry farmer that came in. The first, I guess, really agricultural other than just cattle or goats or horses. So we had a blueberry farmer who, I guess, thank you to our state representatives, allow blueberry farmers to shoot cannons off as opposed to just putting simple netting up. So we had cannon going off every 5 minutes that the poor guy that lived right in front of it couldn't take. He watched his grandchildren there. They couldn't stay there. He stopped that. So now we have Screamageddon. It started with the zip line, and I agree. I went to the meeting at the place of business, and no one really had a problem with the zip line. He explained, people want to get away from the city. They want to go to a rural setting and do zip lines back in the woods. Okay, I can see how that would be approved and that would be good. Screamageddon? It's funny that it's described as a fall festival, like it's wagons and hay and little children with their feet dangling and going through a maze and picking pumpkins. It's advertised in the Tampa Bay Times along with the Universal Studios and Busch Gardens, Howl-O-Scream. It's in that category. There's people that come out and scare people. There's large buildings that they put up. He's already had the signs up for it. That started before August. It's like having the state fair, the county fair, I'm sorry, that's next to the high school, on your street where you live for 2 months. That kind of traffic, that kind of cars, that kind of trash on the side of the road that I see when I jog down the road every time afterwards. He said he wasn't even aware of that. He hasn't stepped outside on the day after Screamageddon to see the amount of beer cans and everything else there on the side of the road. This is not compatible. It's not consistent. I wonder if I wanted to open a bar in front of my house and sell beer and wine, and then say, I think I'll do a zip line, and then say, I think I'll do a Screamageddon big Halloween fest, and then do a snow mountain. I don't know if that would be approved. I have a feeling it would not be approved on any of the streets you guys live on. I don't know if you're in a rural setting or in a residential area. It wouldn't be on your street where you live. That's how impassioned the people on St. Joe Road and the Bellamy Brothers feel about it. The guy across the street from them did not sign his letter of approval. The people that live right in front of him did not sign it. Only about 8 houses did.
Thank you for your comments, your time.
Thank you for your consideration.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else here in the audience that would like to speak to this item? Seeing none? Mr. Hobby.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'll keep this pretty short. I think you all know I was heavily involved in the Northeast Pasco special rural area adoption. There were many things that folks wanted in Northeast Pasco at that time. They wanted us to protect view sheds along some of the beautiful roads in Northeast Pasco. With the conditions we're doing here, we're going to plant a ton more trees, create a winter wonderland, if you will, in some large areas, and put in thousands of trees so that we don't have uses that will mess up the beautiful view shed. A lot of the people you've heard from today wanted to make sure that we didn't have any additional residential density. That was one of their biggest concerns. We're not proposing any increase in density here. We are being very responsible with the lighting. We have specific conditions to ensure that the lighting doesn't cause a problem with our neighbors. We based it in part off of the auto dealers ordinance and the lumen standards that were there. But at the end of the day, when I go back and I look at what was in the Northeast Pasco Special Rural Plan in 2005 and all the thousands of hours that I spent in there, nobody ever proposed that we not have recreational uses or that we limit recreational uses in Northeast Pasco. Not once. And the plan itself on page 4 and again on page 14 specifically talks about the fact that we need more recreation and that that's part of the rural lifestyle. And that if you put pressure on people and you so reduce their available uses in this area, you are going to unintentionally cause the uses that the people really don't want to occur. You're going to have higher density subdivisions and other uses that they really don't want. And lastly, I just point out to the board, after all the comp plan stuff was adopted, you all had 2 different ULI panels come in. And the last was in 2013, and it went into great detail about how we need to create a premier county. And the ways that it talked about creating a premier county were, some of which were on page 9 of the report, to enhance Pasco's quality of life, create and maintain state-of-the-art community services and facilities, including education, recreation, cultural, and tourism-related amenities, while enhancing Pasco's environmental resources. So we're not going out and proposing the erection of gigantic things in Northeast Pasco that would be eyesores. We're using the topography, and one of the folks you heard talk about, why are we doing this in Northeast Pasco? We want the hills. We're working with the hills. We're not cutting them down. We're going to augment them. Again, on the ULI study, on page 12, it says that we need to make Pasco a premier county by adding culture and recreation areas throughout the county, and that we need to leverage Pasco's distinctive natural resources of economic development gain, including those of using the natural beauty of the landscape in the eastern portion of the county. I would argue we are hitting this spot on. My client's not in here looking for a comp plan amendment to Res 3 to put 150 houses on this property or more. We're trying to work with the land we have here. Most of the time when people drive by on these 2 collector roads, nobody's there, and the uses are going to be really minor. And you can say what you want about some people objecting, and I saw the things from Mrs. Geiger who were from people objecting from most of them were from 1.5 miles away. There's a reason why almost all of the neighbors filed letters of no objection. And that's because we're being a good neighbor, and we've conditioned this in such a way to be responsible and to work well within Northeast Pasco. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Dade. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak to this item?
You're done.
That's it?
You're done.
Oh, he's done.
That was
Okay.
rebuttal.
All right. Any discussion on the board?
One thing, you know.
Mr. Moore.
Thank you. When this first came out, I know I had a few residents that had reached out to me that lived directly across the street, and a couple of those residents that did said that Clark and the team met with them, and they were now satisfied. And those are people that live directly across the street. What I'm seeing, what I'm hearing from her, with the objections, are not folks that live directly across the street, which that would be what we'd be, I would think, most concerned about. What I do appreciate is the 400-foot buffer. So I'm going to be a little sarcastic here, but if you can teach the apartment people to do that too, I'll be very happy. So, but I do like the 400-foot buffer. So I know I had to throw that in, Dan. Planners.
All right. Ms. Starkey?
Yeah, I've been a out to Tree Hoppers quite a few times. My family absolutely loves it. And I would say that it has kept its rural nature. And even that, I don't go to Screamageddon things or horror festivals, not my thing. But it seems to me that facility too has kept its rural feeling, so I have no doubt that, that the snow park will also do the same. And it's not something that's going to be used all year round. So I personally think it's a less intense use than not could come in there. I do have a question for Clark, and sorry I didn't bring it up when we met, and it's something that we talked about at lunchtime with some other people. So I don't.
Clark, you want to come up?
Yeah, I don't know the routes that the engineer. I don't recall the routes that the engineer came up with when we were looking at the most favored cycling routes up in those areas. Mm-hmm. But it's possible that one or two of those roads might be in that most favored loops that have been established. But unfortunately, the county keeps not moving forward with those things. You and I had once talked about preserving a bit of property so that Blanton could have an extra shoulder so that cyclists and motorists could safely drive on. And I would hope that if this property is in that same area that your landowner, I think it fits in with the buffer, might be amenable to working with the county to get that 4 feet extra shoulder so that the roads are suitable for the tourism that comes and the money that comes to the county for the cycling community.
Yeah, Commissioner Starkey, two things. On St. Joe Road, we've already dedicated additional right-of-way that will, in my opinion, be far beyond what the county would need for a widening of that road. So there's plenty of right-of-way on our side for having additional curbing or bike trail or whatever along our section. We would have no problem on Bellamy Brothers as well. There's corridor preservation land that will probably be required to dedicate there. The only thing I would say was, again, we're going to plant literally probably 1,000 trees on these sites. But what I don't want to do is I also don't want to take down the oak trees on our side of Bellamy Brothers that are running right along the roadway. So, but I suspect that there's probably 10 or 15 feet before you get to those trees. But I can assure you we'll work with staff and try to come up with a great solution on that.
I don't know of any bike trail or multi-use trail that's been pondered for out there, but I think
we need shoulders. That's
the
what,
shoulders.
I mean, it's a basic safety thing that anybody
It's the
from around
shoulders.
here knows.
Yeah.
We're fine with that.
So okay, thank you.
Mr. Mariano?
Yeah, I know with the Northeast Pasco area, rural Pasco area, we dealt with a lot of different things, looked at a lot of different things. The densities at houses, et cetera, was always a big concern. I don't think anyone envisioned quite these three items coming up. But the tree hopper thing, I think, was a great addition to the county. Screamageddon was tremendous. My kids compare it to down in Tampa, so you've done a great job with that. And I think this will be a nice amenity as well to help tourism as well.
Mr. Wells? You okay? Yes, sir. Mr. Moore, you had something else?
Yeah, just one follow-up, Clark, and the gentleman did mention this during public comment, so I would just ask to be cognizant of this, and maybe your owners could be cognizant of this and maybe do something about it. You mentioned the possibility of some trash building up. I'm not saying there is or isn't, but if we could if you can agree that your team will go up and down that road on a daily or bi-daily basis, just make sure that that's clean.
Understood.
That'd be appreciated.
No, we understand it, and keep in mind that when the Screamageddon event, the Fall Festival's open, if we're going to be open the next day, we don't want a bunch of trash thrown out there either, because it takes away from the experience for the people going there. But I understand, Commissioner.
For the guy that's trying to push, fight illegal dumping and things like that, that is important. So if we can
Understood.
keep those roadways clean. But from a tourism aspect, and the director of the tourism council, or the chair of the tourism council here, I think it's going to obviously bring a lot of great things that we can have to the county and a lot of things that we can promote. And you mentioned the ULI, so I'm in support. So with that, I'm going to move for approval.
Okay, I have a motion second, but I'd like to say this, Mr. Hobby, when you first came to me with this idea and the way the neighbors in that area came out against it, and you I told you early on, if you could satisfy those neighbors and put the buffers in the right conditions together, to make this more amicable for our area and this rural area, that I would be for it. So I know that you've done that, and you've worked very hard with that neighborhood. You were trying to bring this to us a lot earlier, and you hesitated and drew back and redid what you were supposed to do, and I appreciate everything you did for that, for our little areas. So, and my district.
Mr. Chairman, if I could have clarification on the motion. The motion is for both P12 and P13?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passed. Okay. Our last item is P15.
P15 was published in the Tampa Bay Times, July 19, 2019.
Oh, I have four.
Don't forget P4.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So just remember that.
Okay. I got you.
I know you did.
This
Good
actually is not
good
my
afternoon,
last one.
Commissioners.
I got this item and P4.
Yes, and P4, correct, yes. Denise Hernandez, Planning and Development, item P15. It's an appeal, PDD 19-1129. It's an appeal of the Planning Commission decision of February 21st, 2019, denying special exception petition number 7389 for a private school for a baseball and softball school in an AR agricultural residential district. Property is located in central Pasco County, approximately 320 feet south of the intersection of Hadlock Drive and Elkmont Lane. It's just showing the surrounding zonings, which are pretty much AR, agricultural residential. Future land use is Res 3, 3 dwelling units per gross acre. It's the aerial photograph of the site. This is the site plan that was presented to the Planning Commission. On this item, the Planning and Development Department initially had found the proposed special exception request consistent as conditioned with the comprehensive plan, future land use 1.10.1 compatibility review. With the criteria in the Land Development Code 402.4.f, special exception review considerations. The conditions which are in your packet that were initially presented to the Planning Commission included limiting the number of students on the site to a maximum of no more than 4 at one time, limitations on days and hours of operation, ensuring that Hadlock Drive and Elkmont Lane at specific locations are properly stabilized and kept in a safe and passable condition through the use of regular maintenance, ensuring that fire trucks and other emergency vehicles have unrestricted access to the property, and limitations on outdoor lighting. The Planning Commission disagreed with the Planning and Development Department recommendation and recommended denial of the special exception. The Planning Commission determined that the standards for issuing a special exception as set forth in the Land Development Code, section 402.4.f, special exception required standards were not met. Specifically, the Planning Commission found that it was not compatible, it was not consistent with the comprehensive plan, future land use policy 1.10.1 compatibility review. And they also found that the Land Development Code 402.4.f.2, they found that the proposed use will create or excessively increase traffic or parking congestions or otherwise affect public safety. And also they found that the site upon which the proposed use is to be located does not have suitable access, ingress, and egress, which is 402.4.f.3. So on this appeal, this is a non-de novo hearing. There's no new testimony can be heard or presented. The review is limited to the transcript and record from the Planning Commission. The Board of County Commissioners may reweigh evidence previously presented to the Planning Commission and may modify, adopt, or reverse legal conclusions and conditions of the Planning Commission. The Board of County Commissioners has the authority in this case to deny the appeal and uphold the decision of the Planning Commission denying the request for special exception pursuant to the Board of County Commissioners' determination that a private school, baseball and softball school, does not meet the criteria in the Land Development Code, section 402.4.f, not E. Grant the appeal and approve the special exception based on the Board of County Commissioners' determination that private school, baseball and softball school meets the criteria in the Land Development Code, section 402.4.f. Grant the appeal and approve the special exception based on the Board of County Commissioners' determination that a private school, baseball and softball school meets the criteria in the Land Development Code, section 402.4.f, with added conditions, or it may also remand the matter to the Planning Commission for additional evidence. That's my presentation on this item, and I know I had discussed the conditions that were recommended to the Planning Commission by the Planning and Development Department, and There's also on the record conditions that were requested by the applicant in this case. They are in your packet. It's your attachment 4. But I'm going to provide those so that they're readily available for you as well. If I can move to receive and file.
Move to receive
Again,
and
it's
file.
something that has already been part of the record previously.
Move to receive and file.
Second. I got a motion and a second to receive and file. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Thank you.
The applicant?
Was there an agreement on time?
No agreement on time.
Good afternoon, Barbara Wilhite, 2523, used to be, 6327 Grand Boulevard, Newport Richey, Florida, 34652, representing the applicant, Coach Pryor, and his wife, who own the property. So this is an appeal. I hope to truncate this some, because you heard a full presentation before us on the previous matter. They were establishing a record. So here, we did all of that. We went over this for hours at Planning Commission. Your county attorney's office did a great job trying to get the facts clear in the record and ask questions, the appropriate questions of staff and the applicant and the third party's neighbors. So I'm going to try to truncate it, but that doesn't mean if you want further explanation, we can do that. But, so what I'd like to start with is explaining the proposed use of the property. And actually, the best way to explain that is to look at the conditions. And the conditions are the conditions actually that were just handed out by Denise. These conditions came about as a result of my getting involved, stepping in to assist Coach Pryor with trying to put this together, because he teaches and gives lessons to children and young adults on how to play baseball, and I do this kind of stuff. So what I do first is I go to, and I explain the same thing to the Planning Commission, it's in the record, I try to work with the neighbors, and I look at the conditions, and staff had worked out conditions with Coach Pryor, and I looked at them and I said, are they clear enough? Can they be clearer? Because the worst thing we can do is have unclear conditions and we fight over them forever going forward. So make sure they're clear, make sure that we've done everything we can do to address concerns. So ultimately, that's what I did, and I worked with the neighboring property attorney. They still ended up objecting, but we still agreed to all these conditions. So let me go through those, and I think it'll tell you the story of what we're proposing. So the first condition talks about our special exception being limited to 5 acres. So the parcel we're talking about is 5 acres. And it's approved for a baseball and softball school. Of course, just like you had to approve something for an amusement park, and that's a scary term, reading on to what we're actually doing, which is we're providing private one-on-one lessons and small group lessons up to 4 players by invitation only. The second condition talks about the maximum number of students at any time shall not exceed 4. We went on to add to that a maximum number per day, and the lesson shall be a minimum of 30 minutes. Remember, there's only one Coach Pryor, so these are maximums. And we had to do that for the way we write conditions. But it is not anticipated, as explained to the Planning Commission, that the maximum will ever be the usage of this parcel, because again, you have one gentleman here trying to coach the kids. We've got condition 3, which are the same hours of operation that the staff and Coach Pryor had worked out. Condition 4 talks about, and I think you'll probably hear, the main issue that was heard at Planning Commission was the access, which is Hadlock Drive and Elkmont Lane. So condition 4 deals with improvements to both Hadlock Drive and Elkmont Lane. That's very specific. It's improvement to a certain standard for this length here, that length there. And then because the neighbors have a lot of concerns over the road, they said, we don't want it paved. So we said, okay, we'll write it in there, so there's certainty that we won't pave it. And then also to make sure we added that condition that as those access way is being maintained, it wouldn't block anybody's neighbor's access. So we added that condition. Ultimately, the record shows that the neighbors objected to anything being done to the road, so even though we said he'd maintain it and make certain improvements, they don't want anything done to the road. So there's a lot of back and forth in the planning commission record amongst the planning commission members where they were going to take out 4 or keep 4 in. So we'll go over that when we talk a little bit more about the road. The number 5 talks about maintaining emergency access, ability to have emergency access in the road and the access way being of a certain standard for that to occur. Number 6 is a very specific lighting condition. Number 7, a very specific prohibition on any outdoor speakers or public address. Number 8, a very specific condition on noise. Number 9 has to do with anything leaving the site, whether any balls get hit and leaving the site. It's a strict standard. It says it shall not. So instead of having, the way it was written before, provide these barriers, it may or may not work, I said it's easier for staff to apply and the county to apply and for my client to understand that you can't have anything leaving the site. So that's how that's written. So much stricter than what he had worked out with staff, but it'll be enforceable because you'll know if anything leaves the site, it doesn't meet the condition. 10, 11, 12, and 13 are actually quite boring. They're all just standard conditions. The other thing that you don't see a condition in here because the site's already set up in a manner that it provides, and I didn't, because it's an appeal, I didn't ask for a time because it's not a rezoning. Okay. So I'm just going to keep going and again, respect
5
your
minutes
time.
for the applicant, just our normal procedural rules.
But that's
what
a rezoning. That's what your rezoning procedures. I'm an appeal.
So it's not an unlimited time. It's never been an unlimited time, Barbara.
So it's up to I'd like to just keep proceeding.
What time do you need?
Yeah.
I asked the chair if there was a.
You hadn't told me you needed a certain amount of time, so you get the normal time, so.
Well, again, that's a
But I
rezoning
don't
procedure.
mind-
I've never heard it applied to
I don't mind you
appeals.
finishing. How long will it take you to finish?
I think I need probably about 10 minutes to finish. I mean, I need to explain this to you. It's a whole record.
Okay, 5 minutes to pass
So-
and you got 10 minutes. That's okay.
Okay. So the reason why you don't see anything conditioned about buffering is because there's an existing condition. There's trees already surround the property. This was the client hired a planner, an expert planner, Mrs. Fidel from, used to be King and Associates, and she came in and explained that there's trees already surrounding the majority of the property, providing a natural buffer. The pole barn's at 30 feet from the side. The property is over 5 acres, and the private session area is about 2,500 square feet of that. So that is the conditions and explains how we're going to operate. Going to what happened, the next thing I'd like to try to explain is Planning Commission and what occurred at Planning Commission. And it's in the justification for relief. I mean, ultimately, the public hearing was closed, and there was a lot of difficulty in Planning Commission arriving at a vote. It ended up being a 3-2 vote for denial. Interestingly enough, that swing vote was the person who recommended approval and moved approval. So your Planning Commissioner that moved approval said all of the staff's recommendation, and we had met all the requirements with our record. That person ended up move approval, didn't get a second, nobody discussed anything, and then that person ended up voting, being the swing vote for denial. So very confused voting. I think your Planning Commission members were confused. They are a new group together, so I think they learned from this experience. But, so in the end of the day, very strange result to have the person that said you met all the requirements and made the motion then be the swing vote. And so then after Commissioner Hansel had a failing motion, then Commissioner Cox said in an effort to move things along, he was going to motion to deny the request. And then the county attorney prompted him to ask him what his basis for denial was. And he said, well, the characteristic of the land use is agricultural, so I don't believe it meets that characteristic. The zoning administrator jumps in and says, whoa, you've already approved one of these about 2 miles away in the same zoning district, so you can't say that you're not supposed to have these uses in that zoning district. Your school board member refuted that schools are put in agricultural zones all the time. The chairman, a real estate broker, refuted, and then your planning director tried to explain as well, but Commissioner Cox continued to have his opinion that agricultural rural zoning district shouldn't have a private school of this nature. All refuted by your actual planning experts on the record. Also, his opinion, again, that special exceptions should be high standards. He didn't cite anything for that. He was refuted by your staff. After that, then there was a discussion of, he wanted to cite the first criteria, which was consistency with the comp plan for denial. There had been no testimony that was inconsistent with the comp plan by my expert, no testimony from your experts, your staff, that was inconsistent with the comp plan. There was no testimony by the neighbors. They didn't have any experts. They just had an attorney and then the neighbors themselves. So then there was a long trying to find something to cite from the comp plan. After a 9-minute recess, then we heard that what we were inconsistent with was policy flu 1.101, but no discussion of why. Just a yep on the record. Yep, that's it. So I kind of call that a bingo moment, which is let's find something. It's not really fair to the applicant, right? He hired the expert staff, had the expertise, and we were having a hearing, but then to have a strange vote and then to try to come up with a basis and then recess to do that, and then say, okay, here it is, and then let's throw it in the denial. Commissioner Cox raised concern about compatibility, but the record was clear that the neighbors raise horses and offer riding lessons to public for a fee. The record's clear that there's a veterinarian horse farm that also offers lessons to the public for a fee. There's a horse riding school open to the public that has festivals and camps well beyond just offering individual private lessons. And all those uses have no special approval. All those uses are not subject to all these conditions that Coach Pryor, in trying to have lessons for students, is subjecting himself to. So the record was very clear, and your staff was very clear that this is a compatible use. So that clearly the basis that, it's actually a slide back, that says that we were incompatible and inconsistent with the comp plan was refuted by the record, your own staff, our expert, and it was really just Commissioner Cox's personal feelings. And so, but what we did hear a lot about, and I'm sure will probably be the subject today, which is road issues. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Again, looking at the record, there was a lot of discussion over roads, but your county attorney did a very good job in trying to get down to the bottom of it. So in the end of the day, there is starts out, when you leave Old Pasco Road, starts out with 70 feet of easement, right-of-way easement, ingress-egress easement going to 30 feet. So there's 30 feet ingress-egress easement. And ultimately, the questions of your staff by your county attorney, and I kind of want to read that to you, find my two different sections here.
Try to wrap it up.
Okay. All right, so let me just run through this. I'll just read it for you quickly then. Portions of the easement are improved, and one of the neighbors actually blocks the easement. Well, I guess the point of there is it's of their own making. You know, the neighbors complain, but then they're the ones that don't want anybody to do anything to the road to improve it. They're the ones that tend to block the easement. And when they talked about, complained about dust and those things, again, we had a condition and still have a condition regarding maintenance of the road. The condition of the road, your staff clearly testified that the road is passable, is acceptable currently, and with the proposed trips for the use. Staff flat out said that numerous times. County attorney kept asking them. So the other contention was the road's just inadequate. Staff refuted that, but they also, the testimony that the county attorney was asking of the neighbors was, well, do you have two horse trailers that pass side by side? Yes. So you're able to have horse trailers that can pass on this road, but you're saying that it's not accessible to cars. So your staff refuted all that. We have conditions regarding road maintenance, and at the end of the day, to still say road issue was an issue when we have a condition about it and your staff refuted it, there's no basis for that, for Commissioner Cox saying there's still a road issue. When the purpose of a special exception is to put conditions on to address any issues, we have the conditions, And even without the conditions, your staff said, we don't need condition 4 because it's acceptable, the road is acceptable in the condition it is now. So with that, I apologize for the confusion regarding the appeal. We would ask for a little bit of rebuttal time, depending on for any opposition. Thanks.
All right. This is of course, it's an appeal, but it is also a public hearing to the appeal. I have no one signed up for the issue. Does anyone here wish to speak to it? Yes, sir.
Please state your name, address, and that you've been sworn for the record.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I'm Dave Smolker with the Smolker Bartlett Law Firm, 100 North Tampa Street, Suite 2050, Tampa, Florida. We're here on behalf of Mr.
Sir,
and
I'm
Mrs.
sorry, just state if you've been sworn for the
Have
record.
you been sworn?
I have been sworn.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
And before you go into your testimony or your argument, how long are you going to need?
10 minutes.
I think that's fair. You gave
That's
the
fair.
applicant 15.
I will be as brief as possible.
Okay.
Because I think, frankly, members of the board, this is really a fairly simple appeal. The Planning Commission got it right. This use is simply too intense for this particular location. Sometimes that's the way it is. And it's a square peg in a round hole. And I do think it's important for you to have reviewed the order that was entered by the Planning Commission. That order was approved by all the members of the Planning Commission when it was brought back to them at their next meeting. And the key here is, among other things, the 12 to 15 foot wide road is simply inadequate to handle the volume of traffic that would be generated by the proposed use. Currently, the residential trip generation that would be anticipated from Mr. and Mrs. Pryor's home, assuming that there was a number of children there and they had cars, would have been 60 trips per week. If you look at the level of customers that would be serviced at their site for this baseball park, you would have 260 trips per week. That is a dramatic increase in the amount of traffic. And that increase in the traffic, for all practical purposes, in my opinion, makes it almost per se incompatible with the neighborhood.
Some of these items that Mr. Smoker stated were not on the record, the 260 trips.
You're not at the mic.
Come to the mic.
My understanding is that they
Wait,
were.
let her speak to the mic.
I'm sorry, I'm playing record police today, so please forgive me. I probably should be sitting somewhere here where I'm more accessible to a microphone. But the 260 trips per week, that was not on the record. Additionally, there was a statement by Mr. Smoker, please forgive me, I didn't get to the microphone quickly enough, that the entire Planning Commission approves the order. That's not a correct statement either. That is signed by the chairman of the Planning Commission, and that was done so to planning commissions after this appeal, this special exception was heard. So I just wanted to, and I'll probably be objecting once something that's not on the record comes out.
Okay.
My understanding was that we had an expert who was prepared to testify to these facts, and that the expert was not available on the day of the hearing, and that my understanding is that the
That's
attorney was.
correct, but if you read the transcript, your expert document did not get into the record. So you're now re-arguing what you wanted to get in at Planning Commission and couldn't.
Fair enough.
And if I may, that's in the verbatim transcript, page 60 of 140, where the Planning Commission did not accept the analysis or any of the information from the expert that they provided.
Because she was not able to attend the hearing. All right. Fair enough. Let me read what the order says that was signed by the Planning Commission. This is a key. Hadlock Drive consists of approximately 12 to 15 foot wide varies, paved ingress and egress easement in substandard condition from Old Pasco Road for approximately 1,000 feet up to the entrance of the Sarah Russell Stables and the Russell Equine Sports Medicine veterinarian. And then continuing east, we're going to then get to the property in question. Continuing east, Hadlock Drive consists of approximately 12 to 15 foot wide, it varies, unpaved ingress and egress easement, which is made up of dirt and gravel with several deep depressions and variations throughout its surface, portions of which are nearly impassable with an ordinary car and in substandard condition for approximately 1,150 feet to the intersection of Elkmont Lane. Elkmont Lane from Hadlock Drive to the subject property is also considered substandard with 12 to 15 foot wide easement varies, unpaved ingress and egress easement made of dirt and gravel with several deep depressions and variations throughout the surface, portions of which are nearly impassable with an ordinary car. Now, primarily on the basis of that, the Planning Commission concluded in its order that the proposed use was not consistent with the comprehensive plan, specifically policy 1.10.1 compatibility review. Now, if you think about it, clearly a high-intensity commercial type use, which is effectively what this school would be, is not normally consistent with a agricultural residential area. Now, council made it sound like suddenly that conclusion was generated out of thin air. But the facts that were before the Planning Commission were sufficient to easily draw the conclusion that this particular proposal was not consistent with the comp plan. Additionally, they found, and this is not refuted, that the proposed use will create or excessively increase traffic or otherwise affect the public safety. So this is a safety issue. And if you think about it, it makes sense. If you're going to have cars, large numbers of cars coming in and out of that at specific periods of time, there's not enough room for them to pass between each other effectively. Additionally, they've...
Excuse me.
Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
Actually, the record is completely different from what it says. It actually even says in its current, and it's in the record, in its current condition, 2 cars don't pass each other. I think that it's actually, if you look at page 86 of 140, there was a person who actually testified that said that there's blocks that are placed in the easement, which disallows some of the passing. And there's also sections in the actual verbatim transcript that explain that if 2 cars are going to pass each other, 1 car stops and lets the other car pass. So that's the current condition out there.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
That's illegal.
So the Planning Commission had before it sufficient evidence that the existing roadway would not be adequate to handle the level of traffic that was being proposed. Additionally, they found specifically that the section 402.4.F3 of the Land Development Code had not been satisfied because the proposed use does not have suitable access, ingress, or egress. These findings were based on testimony and evidence that was presented to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission had the opportunity to listen to that testimony. They had the opportunity to judge the credibility of the witnesses, and they came to this conclusion. And this conclusion is supported by the evidence, and it shouldn't be overturned. Now, I understand that you do have the authority to reweigh the evidence, but I would suggest to you that in this particular instance, that ability is one that has to be very carefully considered because in this particular instance, we had solid evidence in support of the Planning Commission's decision. Now, the justification that has been submitted in support of this appeal really doesn't adequately address the underlying decision and basis for the decision of the Planning Commission, which was the inadequacy of this particular ingress and egress. Now, there was mention made of, well, the Planning Commission, kind of got it wrong, they couldn't figure it out, they had to take a recess. That's sort of standard operating procedure. And a lot of times when a board is having to consider a decision, they're going to have to make sure that they support that decision and that the record is adequate to support it. And so to the extent that there was any time taken or any confusion, I would submit to you it wasn't confusion. I submit to you that this was the part of the deliberations of your planning commission, which should be respected. Now, there was a couple of mentions in the justification which we don't think are really fairly accurate. One, it is true that there was testimony from my client, the Dion's, that occasionally horse trailers can pass on that road, but that's a rare occurrence. We're not talking about 260 a week. That's a rare occurrence comparatively speaking.
I'm objecting again to the 260 a week. That's not part of the record, so I would like to object to that statement.
So what it ignores, the justification ignores, is that the testimony was that horse trailers rarely have to pass. Rarely. Now, there's also testimony that there were other schools and commercial uses in the area, but what this ignores is that these schools and commercial uses are all located on the main paved road, not on the portion of the road that was of concern to the Planning Commission, which is essentially dead ends effectively at the Prior's property. The staff, there was also indication that the staff said the road is accessible in its current condition, but as a practical matter, that ignored the evidence that was before the Planning Commission, including pictures of the easement indicating that the road was effectively impassable for two cars to pass at once, and that wet conditions were creating depression areas and other issues. So, you know, ultimately, the Planning Commission had the evidence before it. They made their decision. It's supported by the record, and I don't think it's appropriate, and really there's not really even a basis for overturning their decision. Now, council focused on the conditions of approval. May I have 2 minutes?
1 minute.
You've got one more minute on the clock.
Yes, sir. Thank you. You can condition potentially a special exception ad nauseum, ad infinitum, in order to try to fit, but you can't fit a square peg in a round hole. And with all due respect to the Priors, I sympathize with their situation, but this use is a square peg in a round hole, and all the conditions in the world are not going to be able to make it adequate ultimately. And I don't think my clients should be put in the position of having to worry about whether all these myriad conditions are going to be enforced. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
When do we get to ask questions?
Excuse me, also, I want to make a clarification into the record again, as I previously did. If you look at your verbatim transcript, page 45 of 140, there is a testimony that two cars do not fit on that easement in its current condition.
Thank you.
You can ask questions of the appellee, I guess, now, since he's up there, if you have questions of Mr. Smolker.
I do have a question. I'm looking at page 83 of 140.
The transcript?
Yes. And it says that the easement is 70 feet. It says, this person has lived there since 1987. The driveway that they were discussing is a little over a half-mile long. To clear something, the right-of-way issue at the front portion of this road, the easement is 70 feet. On the rest of the way back to my house, it's 30 feet, not 15. But it might be reduced to 15 because someone has put some kind of blockage in the easement. Is that correct?
That's what it says.
Okay. I would think that whoever put blocks in the easement has some liability if something happens, but that's an issue for another day.
Well, Mr. Chairman?
And,
Mr. Moore?
Okay, sorry, go ahead. Please.
And so, do I understand there are people on this road that have horse? We heard horse.
Yes, the Dion's have
So
a horse farm.
I think
There was
probably.
staples on that.
Yeah, so calling this a baseball school, and is it a horse school? Or is it a baseball camp, and you have a horse camp? I think probably what might be tripping some people up is they're calling it a school, and maybe we need a different kind of designation for that. But I don't know why, if they were teaching soccer on a soccer field, that seems compatible in the ag use. So I'm kind of shocked that this was denied in reading the transcript. And I'm reading here that someone built a house that uses this easement. So if the road is not available for a car, how is it available for construction trucks to use to build a house?
The only thing I can think of here is that they're referring to a house that was partially encroaching upon the easement.
Answer that question on the record, Counselor.
She asked me the question.
So I'm just saying that, I'm kind of saying that to my fellow commissioners, I guess.
Hold a minute.
So I'm sure I'll have more questions, but I was curious about those.
Thank you. Mr. Moore?
Thank you, sir. So I just want to reiterate something Commissioner Starkey just asked, and I think you responded yes to. Somebody is giving riding lessons on their property?
Yes, Russell Stables.
Well, we got to let them answer.
Yeah. But I've been there.
The answer is occasionally yes.
Okay. It was brought up festivals and camps at those properties?
At this property?
At the stables there.
It was on the record, it was
camp.
mentioned it was on the record, so.
I don't believe that the Dion's property is being used for festivals and camps.
Do they have birthday parties for people on horses?
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
They do.
okay.
So they do, yes.
I've stabled
So,
horses there at
you know,
that time, and I'm aware of what they do there.
Okay, so we are giving lessons. We
Yeah.
are having birthday parties, and we are having something similar to that. On the record, it says that. Mr. Smoker, you mentioned, you made a statement earlier that it's standard practice at times to take a recess during one of these meetings. I've never once seen us take a recess and then go back for a vote, or seen somebody do that. I don't know how that's standard practice. Where do you get that documentation? Or-
I've observed it in the past.
You've seen it here before?
Yes.
That we've taken a recess, that a board has taken recess, come back and made a decision?
Yes.
I've been here for 5 years and never seen
No,
that.
we don't do that here.
I won't tell you how long I've been following.
Well, I
the county
understand,
commission.
I understand, but I've never seen
I
it
think for
myself.
purposes of the record,
I've seen it once.
that does happen from time to time.
But it's not
I-
standard
I'm not sure that
procedure.
it's relevant to this proceeding.
No, it's brought up, that's standard procedure, it's not standard if it has to happen in
I would
5.5
concur
years.
with that. I don't think it's relevant.
And then one more question, whoever, either you or both of you can answer this too. Like, going back to Commissioner Starkey, I just want to make sure this is on the record too. So there is something that's been, a barrier that's been placed in an easement so cars cannot pass?
There is evidence in the record of that.
There is, okay. All right, that's all I have for now, thank you.
Okay?
So, no, no. No, because this is a public hearing, and so we have to take public testimony
Yeah.
that has to remain on the record. I realize that's the quirk of this procedure, but it says these are public hearings, so the chair has to ask whether there's anybody who wishes to testify. They are limited the same way you are. It has to be based on the record.
But I'm standing here and, okay, so it's on the record. That's
But
the
how many
difference
times
in
can
this
we ask
procedural.
that? I mean, we've already done that once. If there was anybody who wants to speak, we can't
Well,
continue
we
to do
haven't
that
done it
over and
for
over
this.
again.
We haven't done it
We
to
haven't done
Mr.
it for
Smoker.
Just the one person. Mr. Smoker was here, and then we need, is there anyone else in the public that would like to come forward and speak? And you're gonna have 3 minutes.
So you just-
Come forward.
But so you're not going to allow me to speak
You
again?
can only speak.
No, you can have rebuttal. I just want to get
Yeah,
public
you get
comment
re-
done.
You get your rebuttal.
No.
You can come and speak. You need to state your name and address, and if you've been sworn,
Yes. Fred Bird, 29439 Hadlock Drive.
okay?
Okay.
And you have to speak only to what's in the record of the appeal.
Okay.
And have you
What's
been
been,
sworn?
what's been,
He
what's
said
been
he'd
brought
been
up
sworn.
today?
Okay, you didn't hear.
Okay. The blocks, the reason the blocks are there, the blocks are not blocking the road. The blocks are on the side of the road. Reason being is, it's a 30-foot wide easement. All the neighbors, you have to give 50, each one of us owns 15 feet in the middle. The paved part, the hard part, whatever you want to call it.
Excuse me, Mr. Byrd is answering a question that was on the record. This is not a part that's on
No,
the record.
I'm explaining why,
I-
I'm explaining
But
why
that's,
the
this is
blocks
not
are
in the
there.
record.
It's not
Clearly,
in the record.
on page
not on the record.
86 of 140, Mr. Wells testifies that there are blocks that are blocking the easement.
That's incorrect.
But this is
That's
not,
in the
this is a
record.
new part of the record, so I'm just stating what's
So-
on the record.
You
What
can't answer to that.
What Mr. Byrd just stated is not on the record.
You can't answer anything that's not already in the record on the appeal.
Okay, can I explain the easement situation then?
No.
No.
Not unless,
in the
not
appeal.
unless it was brought up in the
So
previous hearing.
So even if the information is incorrect, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
So I just ask a question, that if the road's blocked, how are we getting in and out then?
Okay,
That's false information.
okay.
So, well, Ms.
I've
Are
got
we gonna
someone
keep,
else coming.
okay. Is that where we're going?
Someone else coming.
Good, Mr. Hand.
I'm getting confused now.
You have to give your name and address and add if you've been sworn.
Okay, good afternoon. My name's Elizabeth Pryor. I live at 8931 Elkmont Lane, West
I
Chapel.
want to be very careful because Ms.
Florida.
Pryor did not testify at the last hearing, so I am a bit concerned
She may not
about this
testify now.
situation.
She can.
She's
te-
the owner,
she
but,
can-
okay,
She can speak to just
can
what is in the
speak.
record.
okay.
but she's got
Correct, yes.
limited-
Thank you.
I have been sworn in, and I am going to speak to the record. All right. Obviously, myself and my husband are the applicants for this special exception, and I paid for the record, so I read it thoroughly. A couple of things I want to say is that the neighbours that are objecting, we bought the house from them. They had full knowledge of what we wanted to do before we bought the house from them. My husband does private clients. It's one-on-one, maximum of 4 at any given time on site. I have to say that this is not excessive. It meets, or it's well below the county's recommendations. The staff at Pasco County have approved the application with conditions. They had 2 road experts, Will Poon and Jamali, both testify on record that the road was sufficient for the use that we were proposing. The county attorney did advise Mr. Cox at the time during the last meeting that he couldn't use his opinion, and Mr. Cox at one point said that his bar for the special exception is high, and I'm not convinced that this one really gets over that bar in my own mind. It really came across as an opinion, and that's as per the record. As it's been mentioned already, there is a horse riding stables offering camps and lessons on a daily basis on the same road that they're objecting to. In the record, it's also stated that it is a baseball school approved 3 miles away from our house on the same zoning. And I'd just like to, those are my main points for that. That's all I wanted, just to reiterate that we, have been approved by the county with conditions. We meet all those requirements. They're in the record, and we had experts that kind of backed up those conditions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Denise, I'd like to ask you a question. Within 3 miles is the other baseball school, which is part of the record,
It's approximately 2 miles away, yes.
approximately 2 miles away. And they had the same restrictions and all. They fall in line, or they're different? Or
They
are
had less,
more
I don't,
restrictive than them?
it wasn't part of the record, only just the approval. May I answer the question about the restrictions?
I think if the commissioner is asking the question for the purposes of whether or not these conditions that they may approve today, if they reverse the appeal, are consistent with another project, I think that's relevant.
These are consistent, stricter.
These are stricter,
Yes.
you're saying? Okay. So, and this board approved that,
The Planning Commission approved
the
it.
planning commission approved
Yes.
it?
Yes.
And this board approved it?
Special exceptions don't come to the Board of County Commissioners unless on appeal.
Oh, yeah, that's right, it would only be, unless it's appeal that comes to us, okay.
Yes.
But the planning commission approved that and had lesser restrictions than this project,
That's correct.
okay?
So to finish this up,
Okay.
let's give Ms. Wilhite her opportunity for
Okay.
rebuttal.
All right?
Thank you. Quickly,
Thank you.
Barbara Wilhite again. So it's frustrating as I stand here, and we did the planning commission, and Mr. Smoker wasn't there. And he didn't cite to you any of the record. he didn't cite you a page, he didn't cite you a line. He gave you his impressions, he gave you his opinions, his expertise, which, yes, he has done this for a long time. But we actually had to do the real record, and when I did the appeal, I had to do the real justification. And I cited to you line by line in my justification the real testimony, the testimony that the roads are not stopping horse trailers from passing each other. The Dion's testified there was never had a problem with horse trailers going in and out. Neighbor Bird testified there's no issue with 2 cars or 2 horse trailers passing on the road. I have it cited line for line in here. I've got your staff cited where they said the roads are sufficient in their current condition for the numbers as it currently exists for this use. I mean, we went through each of the issues, and it's just hard to watch the priors have to come here today and spend money on this appeal when all of this was gone through, and the evidence is there, the testimony is there, the surrounding uses are there, the prior approvals, and we meet all the requirements, and the record's there. So we'd ask for you to please uphold the appeal, overturn the Planning Commission, and approve this with those stricter conditions. The only condition you may want to talk about is condition 4, just because that came up at the Planning Commission. Whether you want it to be on the county, you can speak to your county representatives about that. Whether you want to be in this issue of neighbors don't want any improvements to the road, this condition does require some improvements to the road. So look at condition 4 and think about, because staff has testified before, after this condition was proposed by me, staff testified that the roads is a fine condition now, and as long as you have condition 5 that talks about making sure that it's passable for emergency vehicles, the staff felt it was sufficient with or without number 4. So number 4 puts you in the position of having to dictate improvements to a road that the neighbors then objected to. So, but in any event, we stand behind the conditions, and I would like to be able to move this forward so they can move on with their livelihood. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Moore?
And so, again, this is in the record. Here's the picture. There are cement blocks lining the edge, and I don't know where the easement is, obviously, how deep it goes, but this was in, people are talking from the audience. But this is here. So, so relating to 4, condition 4, I would strike that. When it comes to emergency vehicles too, I mean, if we have a situation where there's heavy rains, and I don't know this road, but if there's heavy rains along here, how are emergency vehicles going to be able to get off the side, which they do on a regular basis on multiple roads throughout the county? How are they going to be able to go off on the shoulder if there's issues on the other side of the road, whether it be potholes or flooding because of heavy rain? So that would, I'm just telling you, I have a concern with these cement blocks. I don't even know if that's legal. So that's something that has to be looked into by code, probably. I see another condition on here, and I'm just curious why this condition is even there. There was condition, I guess, offered by the applicant that the days and hours of operation should be limited Monday through Friday from 3 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. I mean, what about summers? I mean, wouldn't they like to be able to have people come out in the summer?
In the hot sun.
I would strike that too.
That's the hottest time of the day in the summer.
But I mean, if they want to have people, in my opinion, out there during the day, it was stated earlier that people are taking riding lessons. I'm very familiar with how that works. I'm sure they come out during the day, so I don't know why somebody couldn't train during the day.
Was it only operated during the daytime, daylight? Daylight's why?
Well, summer mornings.
No, this says
Yeah.
limited Monday through Friday from 3 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. So my question was, why are we not allowing, why is that condition there? Why are we not allowing them during the day?
For the summertime?
Whenever. It's limiting it to 3 p.m. to 8:30. There's kids that are homeschooled.
Right, and there's no school hours during the summer either, so.
Yeah, no school. I don't know how you can even, I mean, I don't even know how you can run a business just be honest, 3 to 8:30. So I don't think that's, I'd be amenable to, if you wanted to change that condition, I'd support that change of that condition. I wouldn't limit them from 3 to 8.
to make a motion.
Well, that would have to be up to the applicants.
That's your motion? You gonna make a motion, you want to change those?
Well, I think that would have to be up to the applicant if they even want that. I'm just asking them the question if
Oh,
that's,
yeah.
Well, I guess I have another question too.
well, can you let it run? I'm sorry.
To answer the Commissioner's question, we could change the 3 PM to 9, and that would be helpful to the
9 a.m. to 3?
9 AM to
So
8:30 PM.
I'd be amenable to that, yeah. I'm gonna support overturning it anyway, so I think it's ridiculous. Listen to the record.
Okay, I have a question.
Ms. Starkey?
On number 10, so this is ag zoning, right?
Yeah.
How are you requiring them to have a building permit in ag? Because they don't have to have a building permit in ag.
That's not true.
No?
They don't have to have a building permit for a non-residential farm building. That's not every structure.
Not every
Okay,
structure.
okay, so for a home, they have to have a permit.
Oh, yeah,
But
for
for
a
a, it says here, for any structure that has a footer. So is that a dugout? They have to get a building permit for a, I mean, what is,
Would that
that
be a-
seems kind of strange to me. I mean, are you requiring a
Are-
horse paddock to get a
Is
permit?
the commissioner's argument that a dugout is a farm building?
No, but it's.
I
Yeah, it's
think
not a
that
farm
on
building.
ag, there's a lot of different buildings you can build without a
Not
permit.
dug-
So I'm just
not
wondering,
It's a non-residential farm building as defined by the statute, Commissioner. And if
Doesn't-
that's, and that's
doesn't say
exempt,
that?
that's exempt.
okay, but that doesn't say that there. That is, this just is like,
That's
this
understood.
this is catching everything. It doesn't say a non-residential, well, only a residential, whatever the word is you're saying. I think that's.
You could add as
What's
applicable.
non-ag is what he's talking
What?
about.
Barbara, isn't
Just add
that?
as applicable, and then,
Yeah, this seems to me that it's catching too much.
so whatever the law is,
It's a non-ag structure. Yeah. It's a non-ag structure, it would be a dugout, would be a non-ag structure. You wouldn't find
No.
that, you wouldn't find
That
a
isn't what it
feeding
says.
bunker for cattle on a baseball field.
That is not what it says. I can tell you, there have been barns there have been buildings,
Field of Dreams we're talking about, just kidding.
I think that sentence is catching too, more than it's supposed to. That's all.
Okay. Anybody else?
Well,
I think you need to fix
I
that
don't think the other
sentence.
commissioners
Moore?
want to talk, but.
I'll just make one,
I'm ready to
one
make a motion.
statement. You know,
Mr.
when I,
Mariano?
thank
Yeah,
you,
but
Mr.
we
Chairman.
got-
When I
what
consider
do we
the
got?
road situation, our staff has gone up and checked some roads in my district that are dirt roads that they're passable to our fire vehicles, but not to the other. I know there's conditions in here to kind of address that, but that's the biggest issue I see, making sure the road tape's going to be maintained for passability.
And I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part, I'm sorry, Commissioner.
The passability part, just making sure we
Passability
can
on the road.
maintain that the roads are going to be passable. You know,
Blocks-
strangers
blocks
coming
shouldn't
in,
be
coming
the
out.
right-of-way.
5?
5, yeah.
Okay. You like to see 5 left in there, is what you're saying?
Yeah, definitely has to stay in.
Okay.
Okay.
With that, I'd make a motion to overturn the planning commission's ruling, and with that motion, I'd like to strike condition 4, and I'd like to amend condition 3, allowing from 9 a.m. to 8:30 p.m., and as it states, and on Saturday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Well, and I would like to add fixing that number 10 to whatever language it is that Jeff just said. Can you put it in lawyer speak?
Well, 10 is not really even a condition, it's an acknowledgement. So I'm not sure, but if you want it to say, as required by law, acknowledge that a building permit as required by law for all structures. I'm fine with that, but
Why don't we just strike it?
Yeah, why do we keep that in there?
Strike 10. You know, strike,
Why does he not be in there?
strike
Follow the law,
10.
follow the law.
Added my condition to strike 10.
Second. Okay, I got a motion and a second.
that's approval of the project with staff's recommended conditions, but for 4, 10, and the amendment to the time on 3.
Nope, I want to ask you about number 2. Sorry. 2, I mean, how can you play a game with 4 people? If you wanted to
They're not
have,
playing a game.
the maximum number of
They're being
students on the site at any given time shall not exceed 4. Can we only have
We would-
4
we would like-
horseback riders at the
We would like
at
to
the
keep that
horse
condition
farm?
the same, because remember, your staff's testimony about the road being adequate is based upon these conditions. So we'd like for you to approve, our suggested conditions here, and with your modifications, I think are appropriate, Commissioner Moore.
Oh, these are
but-
your recommended conditions?
Yeah, these red lines are mine, yeah.
So
But
I
you're,
don't
again-
have a red line.
so you're okay with
Black
2?
line.
So you were okay with 2 is what you're saying?
We are okay with those,
Even
yes.
though I understand that'd be nice to
Pryor,
allow.
I'm sorry, I didn't
additional
look at this
people, but-
page.
Barbara?
Yes.
Mr. Pryor wants to talk to you.
Yeah, we would feel comfortable sticking with those conditions 1 and 2. That's what we agreed to, that's what your staff's testimony was based upon.
Okay.
If we want to come back and modify that in the future, we could do that.
So the motion stands as is, and I think there was a second by Commissioner Wells.
I need a point of clarification for a moment, and I
then we
apologize.
Struck 10.
When I
And that.
entered something into record, there was a set of conditions that don't have strike-throughs or underlines, which is what the recommendation by the Planning and Development Department was to the Planning Commission. And there's another set that has some strike-throughs and underlines. That is what the applicant proposed, and that was entered to the record. So the recommendation or the motion that's being made, is it to adopt those conditions or adopt the conditions that staff?
So come here real quick.
Yes,
and make sure you
absolutely.
And make sure you're on the same page.
I think it's the county's recommendation.
Okay, so motion stands? Okay,
Okay?
so we're good?
Motion stands. Those are the ones that were proposed by staff to the Planning Commission.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion passed, 5-0. Now we move to P4.
I didn't know you had something else.
Approved.
P4 was published in the Tampa Bay Times on June 21st, 2019.
So we need to tee this up a little bit, and I think Barbara needs to find someone. I'll go over the information as best as I can. I think the applicant is not in the room at the moment. So P4 is PDD 197398. It's a zoning amendment in the name of Burge O. Kanjian and Paul O'Grady. It's a rezoning from an R2 low-density residential district to an MF2 multiple-family high-density district. Parcel is located in south central Pasco County on the east side of Old Pasco Road, approximately 600 feet north of Oakley Boulevard. The existing zoning is R2 low-density residential, and the applicant is proposing MF2 multiple family high-density district with a deed restriction limiting the residential development on the property to a maximum of 210 units and prohibiting multifamily apartments. So these are going to be attached fee simple units. And it's on 48.8 acres. And as you can see, this is the surrounding zoning. There are some MPUD zone parcels. There's some multifamily in the area, R2, and agricultural residential on the other side of Old Pasco Road. The surrounding land uses are Res 3. Access to the property is from Old Pasco Road. And staff is recommending approval. This actually also went to the Planning Commission, and they recommended approval as well. And I'd like to wait for the applicant. She may have some items that she may wants to discuss.
Okay, is applicant here? Ready. The time started.
Mr. Chairman, there was the meeting is about there's an old route study done in 2005, 2006, I don't remember the exact date, that on Old Pasco Road that puts the requirements on this property, and so there was some clarification that the applicant's trying to get from our staff.
Oh, okay.
In the back room with respect to
Should we
that,
just
so.
recess for 5 minutes and while they do that?
That sounds like a good
Okay,
idea.
we'll recess for 5 minutes and come back
Clean up my
to that once they are ready. All right,
Okay, I threw
thanks.
mine away. Is this yours?
Nope, this is mine.
Okay.
Is everybody back? We're gonna start back.
You know, we reached out to them, we got like 6 different reasons,
All right, we're going
so we
to,
can talk offline if you want. And
We're
then
gonna start our
and
meeting
figure
back.
out what our game plan is.
We're gonna move.
Actually, I got some.
We're gonna start back with old business. We'll come back to P4 when our clients get back, the attorneys, so. Are we gonna do our R3, Mr. Biles, should we do that, or how long does that take?
I would suggest doing the miscellaneous business first, see where they
Business
are,
first.
and then this can be done in 2 weeks. It's not something that has to be done today.
Oh, wait a minute.
So-
We may be going back to P4. May.
Yep,
Slamming on my gavel got them moving.
Yeah, so if you would reopen the public hearing on the
Yep.
item.
I'll reopen the public hearing at this time, and we're hearing
On
P4.
B4.
So we've already had proof. Okay?
She's already done hers
She's
while
done
you were
hers?
back there, so you're up as the applicant. Whoa.
That's all you need to say?
Barbara Wilhite, 6327 Grand Boulevard, Newport Richey 34652. We're in agreement with staff's recommendation. We have worked out our alternative request, alternative standard request with staff, which is administrative approval. We needed to get that administrative approval in place to be able to go forward with rezoning, and we have that worked out. So we thank you for your patience
So
and
it
your
gives
staff
us our
working on
right-of-way
this.
for 4-lane and all that.
For Old Pasco Road.
Road.
Takes 84 feet off of our property, eliminates about 20-some-odd townhome units, but
Okay.
we worked it out.
Right.
Just had to get that on the record.
Okay. This is a public hearing. I have no one signed up for this item. Is there anyone in the audience who want to speak to this item? Seeing no one?
Move for approval.
Second. I got a motion for approval and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, like sign. Motion passed. Okay, we'll move now to, Mr. Biles, should we hear R3, or you want to put that off to another day?
It's the
or-
pleasure of the board.
Yeah, let's move it to next time.
Okay, well, it's a pleasure of the board. We can go to miscellaneous
Someone
business.
wants to move it another time?
How long is it
How
gonna
long
take?
is it?
Uh,
Let's go ahead and hear it. We're here.
Oh, it's only 10? I thought
Okay, R3.
I think you said it was longer than
No,
that.
you're on the clock, Don.
It's
Don
good
prepared
stuff,
for it.
I'm sure, so.
Don Rosenthal, Assistant County Administrator, Development Services. This is one of our quarterly meetings about our processes and where we are. It's a pre-application meeting for the current planning. It shows that our pre-application meetings are still pretty high.
2019 dipped a little bit in the month of May, but it's climbing back up through the month of, it dipped in the month of March, climbing back up through the month of May. Next slide. New submittals peaked month of May, high of a little over 50. Went back down in the month of, peaked in April, went back down in the month of June, and they're headed back up now. Some of the things for planning and development notes. Our average day is we're looking to make 21 days. We're a little bit above that now. We're currently at 30 days. Our meetings for July the 25th are being scheduled for August 12th, and for MPUDs for September. Customer feedback from the building construction services is very high, in the high 90s. Response excellent. Permits issued are peaked well over the 2018, 2017, and 16 numbers. Went down a little bit in April, but it's rising again up through June. Inspections. We've done more inspections in Pasco County during this year than we've ever done before. And each year has been higher than the preceding year. Code enforcement volume of work for fiscal year 17, 18, and 19. From 17 to 18, we went from 14,000 to 17,000. And right now, we're on track to do 14,000, well, just about at 14,000 now. We expect to be over 17,000 for the year. More code enforcement on the number of service calls. More specific on the service calls and our priorities. Code enforcement sweeps. We've had sweeps in each district, with the highest number of sweeps being in Commissioner Starkey's and Commissioner Mariano's districts.
Oh, yeah.
We have 100% compliance in the districts 2, 5, and 6, with 95% compliance in District 3, 99.9% compliance in District 5. Country Club Estate Sweep before, same area after a sweep. TV and media. We are using media more than ever before. Twitter expressions, you can see them there. Audiences that we're reaching is a little over 3 million. And if we had to buy this publicity, it would cost us over $348,000. Any questions?
Chairman, Mr. Wells. And great job with social media. I see you all the time on Instagram.
You like my Don right along?
Yeah, I do. I mean, no, I do. I see it. Is that with a picture? Or? No, it's a video. It's got videos of him. It's got the code team. It's got the minimum housing team. I think it's, I enjoy seeing it. So thank you for that. So the plan review, the goal is 21 days. I didn't see the plan. How are we going to, I know you guys, I know there's some
Well, it should be 21 days, but we're a little behind now. It's about 30 days.
How soon till we can get back to 21 days and then?
Well, staff is working on it now. We want to be at 21 days, and we're doing as best we can. We've hired a few more people. There's a training period in there, so I expect soon. I can check back with staff and give you a firmer number after talking to the team.
Well, I just know that, you know, from what I've seen and heard when I go up there, when I have to, you know, interact with Esther, they're on it. They get it done. You know, so I know they're doing it. I know it doesn't only happen when I call, but they're very responsive. I just want to make sure that we are beating this number. I know we have, so it's only been the last quarter we haven't been able to. So.
Okay.
So I think this plan review number is the current planning, the site plan review number, not the building permit review.
Right. It is site plan.
Esther's number is from over the counter to, the commercial permits can drag a little longer just because they're all of them. So
yeah. And the
this
building
is a
department
this is current planning number.
Right. And the building department is a 10-day turnaround. Planning is normally 21. So that's why I thought you were talking about planning.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Have you started doing the inspections where you do them kind of online through?
Yes, sir. We've started doing some of those. We're not doing as many as I would like, but the team is gradually doing more and more. We did more this month than last month, and hopefully that trend will continue.
But mainly mechanical, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's good, and it saves you a lot of time, really. So.
I think so, too.
Any other questions?
Good job. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
That didn't take 10 minutes. You got more time.
Dan said it's gonna take like 30, so I didn't know.
Later days go, quicker it goes.
Dan didn't realize that
It's
Don
for
liked to
you.
talk fast.
Set the bar and, you know,
Yeah.
continue to
All right,
exceed
we
expectations.
go to old business. Mr. Moore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just a couple things, and listen, if I'm about to step on somebody's toes or something, just wave and say you're going to talk about it, okay? Seriously.
I'm waving.
One was, I'm thinking about tourism. Obviously, tourism did a permit for John Cena coming out to one of the fire stations on July 18th. So John Cena did a spot for his new movie that's coming out. You think I remember the name of the movie, but I don't. But it's an upcoming movie. Actually, when I went and saw the new Lion King with my daughter the other day, I saw it already on the marquee at the movie theater, so I guess it's coming out soon. But he did a promo, so cool stuff there. Anybody gonna talk about scalloping down there? You gonna talk about it?
I didn't do that well.
But you go ahead.
No, I'm just gonna.
You didn't do very well.
Tourism is very happy, and I'll let you talk about what you're gonna talk about if you're gonna talk about it. And then on another one, there was a letter sent in response to our letter to Pinellas County that went to Chairman Oakley. Do you plan on talking about the letter that was sent from the? Go ahead. Okay. So we sent a letter to Pinellas County in reference to them not paying their property taxes to us. So did everybody read the letter that? Okay, so everybody saw it? Okay, so it was a bunch of fluff. Thank you for sending it, though. But it didn't say that they're willing to do anything about it, though. They value their partnership with their fellow commissioners, and we appreciate you valuing your partnership with Pasco County. We do, too. But at the same time, pay your taxes. Enough.
Yeah.
Just do it.
I agree. Anything else?
I'm done. Thank you.
That's it?
So,
Oh,
Commissioner.
and I'm sorry, one more thing. Thank you all again for supporting what we did this morning. I'm so excited, and I really,
That's
it
great.
means the world, it'll mean the world to our citizens, so thank you all again for all
I
your support.
appreciate all the work you did in
Yeah.
my district park.
Oh, yeah, well, and you never know. I mean, hey, I don't know if you know, we put new cricket
That's
fields out there
okay.
too, so.
I appreciate
we're gonna-
the help.
We're gonna keep going, right?
It's a good park.
But Keith and his team, obviously, at Parks, again, thank you.
It's a good
Thank you so
park and
much.
getting better.
You did. Yeah.
So that Rotary out there at West Chapel's done a great job. They're really active in that community, so that they really do a good job. We appreciate them. We appreciate the Advent Health for their work, and also, what's the building? Lennar
Foundation.
for their work in the community also.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Just helping you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Their letter back to us referenced an upcoming meeting that I'm having with their county administrator. That's the 30th of August. So once we meet, I'll report back to the board after that meeting. So he's coming up to meet me on 30th of August. I'm sure we'll talk about this
Yeah,
plus
it's
a
not
few
hard to
other
figure out.
issues.
Just make the call. We'll pay our taxes. It takes like 20 seconds. Quick call.
Yeah.
What's the debate? You own land, you pay taxes.
Yeah, we'll cover probably a couple other topics that we have to discuss with us in Pasco, in Pinellas County.
Okay. Ms. Starkey?
One day. It's
Yes, so, as you know, I attended the annual conference in Las Vegas, and I took a field trip to see a project that my committee that I'm on set up with many commissioners, and it is called the Boulder Highway Collaborative Campus. And I'm not sure what that is. No. Nope.
That's not yours?
It's a Boulder Highway Collaborative Campus. Sorry, I don't know what that is. So it's a low-income housing project that was funded with a $5+ million grant from HUD. Plus the county put some money into it, and the Housing Coalition, it's called Nevada Hand. And it was amazing, and I hope you get some pictures up of it. Maybe just do Google Images. It has it was in a blighted area, and so they cleaned out the blight. They built this housing project. Right next door is the Andre Agassi Charter School, K-8 Charter School on the same campus. the Boys and Girls Club came in and put in a very, simple but large building that offers programming for the residents in that area, for kids after school, daycare, enrichment. Adults can use it for community events and also more enrichment for adults. And then they have the Lutheran Family Services. They're on the same campus that is similar to our navigation center. So that might be that building, yes.
Which one?
Let's see here. Well, this building that's 2-story, I think that's the Lutheran Family Services building, similar to, our little navigation center. There should be more pictures. Oh, there you see the plan up top here in the middle. That's kind of the schematic. And it's called Boulder Pines. And really very outstanding program. So in the Lutheran Family Services, there you see the rents. They have all the different agencies like we have here. They have a commercial kitchen, and when we were there, they had clients in learning how to cook healthy food. They actually have a food bank there, and it's a digital food bank. So the clients are allotted so many points per month, and they can shop twice a week, and they are allowed to make choices. So if you want to pick, say, a green vegetable, it might be worth 3 points. If you want to pick a processed vegetable, it's 10 points. And so you kind of get guided towards making good, healthy choices because you get more food. So it's kind of a cool way that they guide them to healthy choices. And they do this all online, and they can go to any library or anywhere if they don't have a computer. And they have volunteers that come and put all the food and get it ready for them to come. So they come twice a week and they just pick up their food. So it doesn't take a lot of time and a lot of space. And they're actually in the midst of expanding it. Maybe you can keep scrolling down so you can see what, gosh, I'm sorry, I thought, oh, wow. No. Well, we'll get some pictures sent to you. I've told Kathy and Marcy I would really like them to go out and check out this project, and I would like to apply for a CDBG grant to do something like this, because we certainly have the need for low-income housing like this. And we use our own money, but we don't go. It seems we don't go out there and ask for the grants. And HUD, when I was there, the HUD folks spoke. And they said they are really wanting to give money to workforce housing, especially in opportunity zones, which we have quite a few in the county. They have $100 billion. They said $100 billion are going to get invested in the opportunity zones, and they really want to partner with municipalities and focus on workforce housing and skills training. So we can also apply for federal funds for apprenticeship skills training centers, and the Florida Keys just got one. They're the first one in the state. They got, let's see, what'd they get? $16 million from the feds to build a training center to help their people get skilled up. So I think there's a lot we can do that maybe we're not. So I was pretty excited about that, and I thought this program here was amazing. I have some other stuff here, but because of the time, I will show it to you at the next meeting in September. Has to do with Elizabeth Dole Foundation and some other things that I think we could also bring here.
About August 20th?
I won't be here.
Oh, okay.
So I haven't received the official word yet, but Commissioner Mariano told me, and someone else told me, that apparently, for the first time ever, I am for the third year in a row, the chair of the International Economic Development Task Force. So I was honored to be picked by the new president for that. I received a letter, like many of you did, about Mitchell Park, and I had a little talk with Keith, and so Mitchell Park's field is maybe not in the best condition, but you want to address it since we all got that letter, and we'll figure out a plan.
Welcome, Keith.
Used to play there all the time.
Yes, so Mitchell Park, just just like a lot of our facilities, we're pretty much at the point where we're at capacity. Mitchell Park is a little unique in the sense that it has very, very poor drainage problems, and so any of you that have ever driven by have looked after a rain event, the fields hold a lot of water. So in addition to basically a lot of use, mole cricket, it's not a joke, mole cricket infestation, and the drainage problems, the 8-week to 9-week seeding operation that we typically do at the end of their season, of the league season, wasn't very effective. So I would like to take this opportunity to at least talk to the board about my team trying to work with the leagues to kind of get better control or better stewardship of the facilities. There's 8 weeks is not enough rest, renovation time for a facility to recover basically the turf conditions. So what we're seeing at a lot of the major facilities is registration exceeding what I would call, dipping into my biological terms there a little bit, a carrying capacity. Every facility would have a carrying capacity, which means you can only put so many teams and so many folks on the field, yet we haven't really done a good job, to be honest, in working with these leagues to say, if you have 4 fields, that has to equal X number of individuals participating in said sports. So I'd like your support to start having those conversations, because the truth is we want the best turf and the best facilities and everything that's available there. Unfortunately, we don't have as many facilities as we need to really respond to the growth that Pasco has seen. So what we have is what we have, and we are going to need the support to work with the leagues to, if you have, again, as an example, if you have 4 fields, maybe you shouldn't be planning your registration for 4 fields. Maybe you should be planning it for 3 to allow 1 field to rest longer than 8 weeks. Grass is a living organism. It can only be beat up so often, and we're really struggling. I won't list the fields because if anyone's watching this or gets wind, they're going to probably say, I can't believe Keith talked about capping programs. It's the reality of where we are, and if we don't start to do something, we're going to be, the field conditions will be like they are at Mitchell all the time. So that's just, thank you, Commissioner Starkey, for giving me the opportunity. This is definitely something that we needed to discuss, so I'm here if anyone has any specific questions about that.
It's a sad state that, we may have to limit the play, but we only have so much room. That the Starkey Park was due 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and we're so much playing catch up on the west side. So I did mention to Keith that, we should talk to the school board again, and David, those fields are closed at night, closed on the weekends at the schools. Let the kids play.
Hillsborough does it.
Yeah, almost everywhere does it. I grew up playing on my.
We did it when I was a kid. I went back to the
Yeah,
schools here.
so come on, we're willing to take the liability. So I'm really asking the school district to open. Those are taxpayer-funded fields, and we're gonna have to limit kids' ability to play, and there's capacity that's just not. We're just not being allowed to use. So our residents aren't being allowed to use.
Agree.
But
I agree 100%. And I know Keith and I are meeting with the league on Friday to discuss some things, and they've been great partners, as have all the leagues.
All the leagues are great partners.
But we do need to have conversations together, maybe if it's investment conversations, or what we can do more together to make sure these kind of things don't happen, because the fields are in the worst shape I've seen. And again, we don't need to place blame. It's just
well, they're overused.
We're a team, but I think we have some.
It's a combination of
It's
things.
maintenance and stuff too, but again, it doesn't matter. We're going to meet Friday to discuss it. I agree with you on the Starkey fields. I think there's going to be more to come on the future there. We need those fields now. Not the diamond field as well, but we need those fields.
Well, we need the money. We need the money to. We have the land. We just don't have the money to build anything.
We might have some ideas. So.
Stay tuned, right?
Mr. Chairman, if I could?
Yes.
I think it was a little bit of maintenance from what I'm hearing, and I think that group of teams, they play in different fields, different parks all over the county too, so they're trying to stretch it out, and maybe that's a way to look at it. Years ago, I talked about trying to raise those fields up. And I think, we've got Magnolia Valley. If the soils there are good, and we can put the fill in there and then go on the top of it so they're elevated better, they'll drain better, I think they'll wear better. It may be something to take a look at for down the road.
Yeah, so the team took the initiative to scope out a drainage analysis for that, because obviously, certain statutes, code requirements, you can't put fill, without negatively impacting your neighbor. So I think that's the largest concern there, but I think that, if we can get some material nearby, reduce the cost, and then fix, that would ultimately, if we can address the drainage on site, because I don't know where else we would be able to fix it, that would help out a lot.
So my church is across the street, and we have more property than we need. And so if you, I'm sure we could work something out with my church.
Okay, thank you.
I know they already have a parking, they use the church parking now on the weekends.
Yeah, which I help
And
facilitate, yeah.
Thank them for that, yeah.
Commissioner, you got anything else?
I won't see you the next meeting, so let me tell you how I want you to vote. Just kidding. I can't think of anything else, but I always respect the right to come back. Okay. Just joking.
Okay, so first thing, let me go ahead and start with a street in Moon Lake that I'm asking you all to approve a one-time fix. It's Miramar Street, it's a B road. The last update we got from the fire team, they cannot access the road when there's rain, that's how bad it is. So it looks like it's a $5,000 fix. I'd ask for approval to.
5,500
Oh, 5,500. So
or 5,600.
Yeah, 55, 51, 70
I'm trying to remember.
exact.
I'm trying to remember what it was. It was 55 or 5,600.
I just said 55, 51, 70, so.
Okay, there we go.
So hopefully we can save some money on that, but that'll be the maximum amount if that's okay with the board. Do I need to get a-
Round up.
Second?
Yes. Commissioner
I'll-
Starkey?
No.
A motion to second?
Yes.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Okay.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Just
And
to clarify, the motion's for
I'm at a-
up to 5,600.
$55,551.70,
I know.
not to go over that.
Okay,
Okay.
just making sure.
Make sure Bud does not go over that. No. Okay.
Give us a little flexibility.
Another thing I just wanted to bring up, and I know, since we passed the local purchase preference, and you hear me talk all the time about us using local vendors, it's nice to see on consent. I know we don't always talk about it, we don't always pull them, but it's nice to see more local companies, Pasco County companies doing business with us. So I don't know if you noticed, like today, Jarrett Ford was on there. It's nice to see Jarrett Ford instead of us buying Fords outside the county. So I just want to make that. And just throwing it out to the commissioners, I get a solicitation list from Eric's team every month. I forward it out to folks maybe that don't do business with the county, that maybe want to do business with the county, and let them do what they will. Or folks that are on our bid list that maybe don't know about something, I send it to them to make sure they know. I'm just saying, if you maybe want it, I don't think it's a bad thing, because you might look at it and say, wow, this person, so maybe if you want to just, I think it's a good thing. Because we've had several that I've added, that you guys have added on the bid list that I don't think they've gotten anything, but at least they know they can bid, where they didn't know it before. So it's all about educating, and I think it starts with us, because you'd be surprised how many folks had no idea there's that many things out there. So
That's not a bad idea. I mean,
Yeah.
I know it was a vendor at one time for another county years ago when I was in business, and it was hard to decipher some of that, and you didn't know when it was coming out, so.
So, and then on to the scalloping. Commissioner Starkey, I want to thank you for filling in last minute. You did a fantastic job. I was in Daytona, and I was happy wife, happy life, so I stayed in Daytona. I truly wanted to be there. The scalloping thing has been something that has meant the world to me, to bring it back to Pasco County. I can tell you, I want to thank you, Senator Hooper, Chef Ben, the Lake family for giving the house, bringing these folks in from all over the country.
That picture was amazing.
It's just neat to the guides, Kurt Romanowski and Mark Dillingham, who helped takes folks that were from Japan. I know I saw them here one day. It's neat to see these bloggers here talking about the scallop season. Some of the numbers, which I thought was interesting, and I went scalloping 3 of the days, and we limited out every day. Again, not that that's the goal. You don't need to limit out. I know Commissioner Starkey, you guys went out and had a great time.
I didn't limit out, though.
You did.
But some of the survey results that I did get back, because I had them survey me twice when I went to the boat ramp, the average boat was almost 4 gallons of scallops per boat. That's a good number. That's a good number. So for us to see that number, again, especially, and nothing against the other counties, I hate to see Hernando and Citrus struggling, I truly do. And they say that happens every once in a while, so they'll rebound. But it's just been a great year, so I appreciate the support from everybody. FWC, I know Tom Grafe spoke in length. I mean, it's been a great partnership. So hopefully next year we'll do another 10 days, and then maybe we can look at expanding. It's kind of the idea. But this, and I'm excited to see the economic development numbers, which I don't have yet, but I don't know if any of you else got to be out there, but it was just such a sight to go out to Anclote Island and see 500 boats out there.
It's crazy.
You know, and I'm out there on the last day on the Sunday, and there's been boats out there every day, and we still limit it out in a couple hours. I was, you know, so it's just neat. Again, it's not about limiting out. It's about being with your family, getting a gallon or whatever it is.
I don't know what we did wrong, but
So-
I got 6 on Sunday.
They're hard to see
Personally.
out there. Next year, you can, I know a good
I know how
guy
to
you
see
can
them,
hire
I
that
couldn't
can
find
take-
any. I probably was coming behind you.
Well, no, but I mean, it was, I was impressed with the abundance of scallops, because
They were big.
they do move in and out with the tide, and again, scallops die every year, so it's good that we're able to harvest them, still protect them, making sure we don't over-harvest, but it was a fantastic year, thanks to Adam and his team. I know the press was fantastic, so thanks for the Tourism Development Council for voting on
they did
moving
good.
forward, and a lot of these things is pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask Commissioner a question?
Yes.
So Commissioner Wells, you mentioned maybe a 10-day again next year. Is there not a possibility maybe to get like a full 2 weeks, or?
It could be, the FWC has made this part of, like, they don't have to vote on it anymore, it's just a 10-day season going forward, just like the other counties are, 2.5 months. Yes, it's a possibility. I guess when Keith and I do a follow-up with FWC, we could have a conversation. But I just want to make sure that the data is correct. Sometimes they're a little bit behind with the study. I want to make sure that we can sustain longer, because trust me, I would love to have longer, and I think folks from outside the county would say the same thing, as well as folks in the county.
Because it's a
You
nice
said it- you
economic
said it all.
boost,
I don't need to say
No, I
anything
mean,
now. So, I guess maybe the commissioner wants me to bring up we're partnering with FWC on expanding the actual scallop sampling off our coast.
Okay.
And the idea with that would be they would have a more robust data set to make decisions on future harvests. So we're partnering with them. Our team actually is doing in-water training right now with FWC staff to be able to take over that sampling, so it's very exciting for them. I keep telling them, please put it on my calendar so I can also go out in the water, but hopefully that's what'll happen, you know, in the next year, next couple of years.
Yeah, because it was I think there was only like 6 sampling sites, or it was very few in the entire county that they
Yeah.
would sample. So for us to, again, work together, and your team, thank you for being out at the boat ramps on the weekends. Melissa, that's who I saw
Yeah.
the couple days.
cool.
She was fantastic. Didn't know who I was at first, but just was very polite. Do you have a minute so I can survey you? So it was pretty cool. So
Thank you.
it's neat to actually see us come.
Yeah.
This is happening. And you look at the other counties, this is exciting.
Well, that's, just as a follow-up, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
It's just, I understand you need to have a sustainable fishery, and you got to be very careful of that. Just thinking about the numbers that I saw, what Pasco had compared to, like you stated, Hernando and Citrus
Well, that's
County.
still going on.
Yeah, well, and again, and they're still going and going and going.
Well, they
It'd be
still
nice
are, but they have, the numbers are not there.
that we had better numbers in Pasco,
We did.
Yeah.
according to FWC. And they measure that again, it's per what again?
Like, not square foot, but per meter.
Yeah, we had a higher number, obviously.
did, yes.
Now, one of them was crazy way up in North Florida. The other one was around Steinhatchee or somewhere. That number was off the
Yeah,
chain.
200
It was
or
like,
something.
it was silly time.
Yeah.
But if maybe at least, 2 weeks would be great. 'Cause I'm just thinking about, tourism mind here, obviously.
Did it
The economic benefit to the, especially
Cover
that,
2 weekends?
Yep.
the economic benefit, especially to the, the West Pasco market.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's great. I mean, I'm sure those restaurants and stuff were probably packed around Port Richey and such,
No, and I absolutely agree, and
Yeah.
it's something that we can discuss. I
and
just,
hotels.
because, trust me, I would love to have a
I mean,
month
and again, I understand,
right
don't go
away.
a month or 2 months in the
Yeah.
beginning, but maybe at least 2 or 3 weeks.
It's a win-win for everybody. We just
Yeah.
want to make sure we don't
Stay blind.
over-harvest either.
And I went and bought new snorkel equipment because I was drowning in my old stuff, so
You
we
only got
also have
6.
all that kind of sales.
Might want to get a bigger mask so you can see them better if you only got 6.
I did, it's clear all the
You
way
got to get a
through.
prescription mask.
I'm a good, no, I'm good, so we were just in bad areas.
I'm done. Go ahead.
Okay, I wanted to tag onto that there just a little bit. Commissioner Wells, what you did to bring Sullivan back was a phenomenal achievement. I know for 3 years before that, we tried to work on it, we didn't get it done, but your diligence, your expertise as a captain, I think carried the weight to get it through. If the numbers are going that strong, I want you to remember, how many years was it that we were out and waited and waited and waited? I think you should go fight for all of it.
Oh,
Try to get
we
right
have
there
a
and level.
conversation every year. I
think you sounds like you got the numbers. We've been penalized for so many years. Let's go get it back in full. We should be treated the same as the other two counties right to the north. So I support everything you've done so far. I think I congratulate you on it because it's been great for the county. But I think go strong and fight hard for it every step of the way.
Do we have enough boat ramps and parking and those kind of things for this? If we was to
No,
spend
but we're working on, Anklo will be expanded hopefully in the next, well, soon. We'll just say soon, soon.
Well, we need to close on the property first.
Yeah, exactly.
It's your time.
All right, thank you. And as far as like boat ramps go, I think SunWest may be one that could be coming up as well. They're doing the rescission process right now. The bids that went out for the restaurant and the hotel up there didn't happen, but staff's going to work on that as far as they look for another way to go forward to make something happen up there. But he's getting close to be able to go back to putting dredging up there, and he's actually helping with some boat ramps for kayaking. To dredging, the other night, last night, I was up to Gulf Landings, and they had brought Gulf Harbors folks were there, Gulf Woodlands were there, and everybody was fired about dredging. And they called the meeting before the regular meeting just to talk about that. And I let them know that the Board of County Commissioners I'm working with is the best one I've ever served with. We're working on best times. We're getting more stuff done than ever. And I will say that, 3 years ago when I had my first dredging meeting up at Sea Ranch, it was just like to find out where the interest was. And we found out there was very strong interest. I told them that we had done a study with Dewberry. Wasn't really thrilled with what the results were, but at least it gave us something to take the next step. I told them for the past year and a half, we were working on boat fees to take a look at that. And with the information we get back state legislature, it wasn't going to be the way to go. So I said, right now, I think we're going to look at using the BP Restore Act money, getting involvement for the people that live on these canals to participate, and maybe doing something up and down the whole coast to get something started. I strongly believe the proposal that was put in with GBA, there was a firm that was done. We talked about this at the budget meeting as far as doing something on the Gateway study, and I says, as far as studies go, studies are great, but right now there's a strong need for dredging, there's a strong will for dredging, all the way to participating in it to help make it happen. But until we make a step happen and build some momentum, it's just going to be frustration out there. And those people are motivated to help support us to make these decisions. But I would like us to look at that contract real close, have it brought back to the budget meetings, because from what I'm hearing, it wasn't going to come back in the budget meeting, which is why I needed to bring it up to you today.
I'm sorry, I was coughing.
It wasn't going to be brought up at the budget meeting again. So after talking to a county administrator before I went to the meeting, just to kind of get an update, is it in the budget? So when I talked to him, I get the feeling it wasn't going to be in the budget. So I needed to bring it before you today, and I need to let those people know what was going on. So I want us to look at it real close as it brings up. If we need to add into the budget to make it work, then so be it. But I want to let you know there's a strong support to try to make it happen one way or the other.
Let me ask a question. Did
Yes.
somebody put something out just like yesterday on dredging in Gulf Harbors area? Because I've gotten several emails on dredging.
I told the
last 2
people.
days.
Yeah, I know. Well, it was just from last night.
It's
It
bringing
was last
back
night's meeting.
bad memories, just saying.
No, well, just from last night, I said, if you want to make something happen, you need to email the county commissioners. And I gave the email address. Oh, yeah, exactly. And again, I gave you guys props every step of the way about getting stuff done, but I says, they need to know, because they can't just hear it from me. So those emails, I said, if you want it, you got to reach out and let them know you want it.
We're still coming.
They may.
But
All right.
they're asking us to vote on something, and there's nothing,
Well,
the
this
county
item here,
administrator
this
wants
item here is
say
going to
something.
come up in the, if we will it'll come up in the budget again, where we can look at it like we talked about, 3 or 4 weeks ago. And again, only with our county administrator saying he didn't think it was going to move forward, I needed to bring it out and let the people know where we
Well,
stand.
I want to hear him say
Mr.
if
Biles?
it's
Yeah.
not
So-
moving forward, 'cause
If you recall at the budget workshop, we went through the BPIs, and the question came up about, there was a BPI for master planning efforts that's directed at the market areas, like we did the Harbors Market area. At that point, Commissioner Mariano is correct, he brought that up to maybe use that money to finish the dredging study as opposed to doing the market area studies. And as I explained to him last night, at the workshop, the board was not interested in doing that. And so we, at this point, are moving forward with the market area study, BPI, in the 20 budget, and the the $100,000 dredging contract is still scheduled to go through the process of be using the Restore Act money, but it has to go through the solicitation process in compliance with the Restore Act requirements. So that's where that is.
So can we borrow from ourselves and refund it so we can get that study going? Because I think we have a consensus that we want to look at dredging. Now granted, that's not the full look.
Some of the emails I had basically were talking about dredging because people can't move on the water because it's so shallow, I guess.
So
in certain places.
So Commissioner Starkey, this is a reimbursement grant anyway. We have to spend the money first anyway. So what we're doing right now is going through the solicitation process to acquire the consultant the correct way in compliance with the Restore Act requirements, which were different than the piggyback that we had tried to do a few months ago. So we're going through that right now. So when that is ready to come to the board, we'll bring it to the board.
Are you saying that's out on the street, the ask?
I had to have to go look at the list to see where it is in the process. But we're working on getting it back out in a Restore Act compliant manner. When that's done, we will bring it to the board for award. And if it's ready for Treasury, we'll set up the budget process to make sure that we take care of that. But it's still a Restore Act funded item, not a general fund funded BPI, as was kind of kicked around at the workshop, and then it didn't really go anywhere. So that's where we are on that.
So this meeting I was invited to, I don't know how long ago I was invited to it, and I didn't know what the topic was going to be until like right before, and they, find out that it was all about dredging for me to be there. They had their meeting afterward. They weren't interested in anything else except for that one topic. So like I said, I know it's very important. They talked about doing different things, about putting in money with the Civic Association to match what we might put in, or other things like that. But this first thing is just the first step to get something done for part of the channels for Gulf Harbors, Hudson areas, and around there. So I think we need to go put it on there to get something started. There's a lot of will, and you may hear about it a little bit more. But again, like I said, I would like to see it brought up for discussion in the budget again. You can study it now, look a little bit more, and do your own research, and talk to the folks that are emailing you back, and see what you're thinking, because I think it's that important. It's been 3 years since we started this, and I stepped away from the boating fees knowing that it wasn't going to be fully supported where it needed to be. But from everybody I talked to, from all the way down, if we need to do MSBUs, all the way down, multiple service benefit units, where everybody shares in the cost to match what's out there with the Restore Act money, there's will out there to make something happen.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just has a question. So during your discussions, you're hearing support for that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and I told them, I said, we're going to look at every option. The boat fees are out of the mix. We just got to go find other ways to go do it.
We know that wasn't going to.
Oh, yeah, no,
$100,000 a year is not going to.
It wasn't going to do it. It wasn't worth
Can't
the
take
battle.
hold of
Exactly. So this way here, and I says, long-term, what I look at is we could probably put this in place, and I think we should do it in conjunction with tax increment financing, but I think we should set this up for long-term so that now, up and down the coast, everybody's on the channel as well. They can all have a smaller contribution. So once all these channels get dredged, now you get a reoccurring fund that can take care of dredging all the way through, that we'll have to worry about funding again. Just like a stormwater utility, we'll have it a dredging utility, up and down. And I think there'll be support for that going as well.
Sure. Yes. The only question I have, and I did review it, it talks in here about looking at Gulf Harbors and just the Hudson Channel, just the one canal. Now, I'm familiar with, Signal Cove and the one canal that you can't, at low tide, you can't even get in or out.
The map's there.
But I chose the map of just doing Gulf Harbors and the one channel. But is there a way, maybe with whatever company we decide to use, where they can rank them by, I don't know how we rank them. They all need to be done, but there's got to be some that take priority over others when it comes to life safety things. Like Signal Cove, I don't know, at a negative tide, I don't think first responders could get in there by boat.
No.
But I'm not saying Gulf Harbors isn't important either, but Gulf Harbors is pretty deep where you can still get in and out. And I'm not saying don't do Gulf Harbors, because it needs to be done too, but I guess we need to look at prioritizing which canals need it the most when it comes to, several things. Economic development's one, with the businesses like in Hudson with that main channel, where they can't even go out to spear fish at low tide. That's ridiculous. But the Signal Cove channel is terrible. I can make it in there at dead low tide, but if you have a boat that draws a foot, you can't get in there. You can't get in there at all. So that's a priority, in my opinion, over maybe Golf Harbors, and might be another one. So I'm just, I know there's another neighborhood by Golf Harbors. I just want to make sure that have some kind of weighting average to where they're looking at. How many residents live back there compared to, I don't know. I don't know how to weight it. You know what I mean, though?
And the reason this started out with these two areas, Gulf Harbors, because it had a couple of small sections that were in there, Hudson Channel, because it had been dredged as well. These would be the inexpensive ones, let's say, that could be fixed real easy. It got into Woodlands and Gulf Landings later on, just knowing that they had a lot of silt that was in there as well. So because the soundings had been done by donation by another firm, that they had used these to say, okay, I can get very specific on what this would cost to do this. Staff looked at the Leisure Beach Channel as well to possibly add it in there, because like you say, when you get out there, you get the, even at low tide, it's low tide, you're dead zone. That's why there's a line going all the way across that goes to the channel. So that could be tweaked, and I think that gets the Signal Cove going to be able to go across as well. So that, I think, is going to be in there where it's going to help those. So this is like the first step. Once we get one of this section done, it leads to where there'll be more enthusiasm. I want to see every single channel dredged, and some of them are going to be easy to do because they've been permitted already. Some will take a little bit more time because they have been permitted. But with what they've got in place for this one here, we know what this number is going to be, and at least we know we get a lot of support to get this part done to go forward. And again, this won't be a quick project, but this at least will get something started where we get two things done that will help the area, up and down right off the bat.
I'd like to see what the number, back in 2005, the number was 2 million for Signal Cove. What is it now? It's got to be double that, I would think.
One of my emails directed the fact that we had approved for the guy to put in a boat ramp at his house, where he bought, the one at the end of a canal. And now he's concerned about if he gets a boat there, he can't get out because of needing dredge on some of that waterway out there. So.
Now, and I tell you, we had people that said, look, let's go look at the two spots that we know are high there, and let's go hire a dredge, get a backhoe out there, and let's go haul that out. So, that's the type of enthusiasm, go put the money together. And they can actually assess, kind of like Heritage Springs did with an association paving assessment they did, where they just come up with the money. But they had an attorney that says, look, we got to look at that real close, and I'll get you his card, Jeff, because he was talking about how we could actually try to make these things work, where the association can do a quick match for dredging stuff coming up right away, too. So.
No, it's neat, and it's a great thing for the county. Again, that's one thing we never really talked about much before I got here, in my opinion, is the Gulf Coast, is the Nature Coast, is the people using our waterways, and so it's important, so, yeah.
I think for property values, demographics, quality of life,
Yep.
it's
And
going
we have a
to,
beautiful waterway in our county, and
need to try to use them all.
we need to keep it that way.
Yep, I agree.
Okay.
Okay. At the NACO conference, I'll tell you, the U.S. Department of Transportation was there doing a presentation. They were talking about the council working on trying to get counties to go out and do road projects different than the way they've always been done. So when we went through the whole thing, I says, I appreciate you guys being here. I appreciate what you're talking about. I says, but Pasco County has just done State Road 56, and we're doing it just the way you're talking about doing. I says, I'd be happy to do a presentation like I did 2 years ago for Connecticut Cities to go talk about what we just did for State Road 56, because we work with our government, the state government, landowners, property owners, got everybody together and made this project happen just like you're gonna go try to do. So they were like thrilled with that, and we may get even Secretary Chow down there at some point to go take a look.
Private-public partnership.
Yes.
Can I add on what you're saying there?
Yes.
So next year, NACO is in Orlando.
Wow.
And I grabbed some of these books, extra books from the NACO Achievement Awards. And we have won some honorable mentions in here in the past, but I think we've done some really good things, and we should concentrate on applying for some of these achievement awards. And it'll be so easy for our staff to go get the national recognition I think they deserve when it's right down the street. So one of the awards, Keith, that won a national award here was a landfill in Los Angeles that is turning a landfill into a park. And that made me think of that land behind the Boys and Girls Club that's sitting there. Why aren't we doing something with that land? And but I'd love to pass this around. I don't know if you got one already. I asked KB to send one to you, but if you don't mind getting it back to me, or we can send for more. But you can look through here and see all the different kind of best practices that are happening throughout the country. and Google them and find out more about them, but I definitely think, with our roads, with the ASH, Connected City, our AM Skills training program, the P4 of the schools and the park and the library, and what other innovative things you guys can think of that we're doing, I think we have a shot at winning some of those, and we should go for it when it's in our backyard.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, this is going to be a great opportunity. So we get back to scalping quicker.
That's everything? You done?
I'll just say one more thing. I'm going to, I think at the next meeting, you may see a vacation of easement for in the Gulf.
A what?
You're gonna- In the Gulf. You may talk to the landowner, property owner up there about what's happened. They kind of drew lines years ago that kind of like didn't give them full parking spots. County wants to hold on to the right of way. There's going to be a discussion about it coming up, but just, if you would just kind of watch out for it. I'm supportive of what he wants to go do. I actually suggested we actually vacate it so we have full parking spots.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Biles?
Just a couple of events coming up. Commissioner Wells mentioned purchasing earlier. That we have a reverse trade show that's happening on the 26th at Land Lakes Rec Center from 1 to 4. And so if there are any vendors that want to sign up for that, they can still sign up for that. Just need to get a hold of purchasing and sign up to be at the reverse trade show on the 26th. And the other thing is, I think you have on your calendar a placeholder for our new fire station that's opening in Wesley Chapel on the 27th at 9 a.m. So they'll start operating out of that prior to that date, but that's when we're going to do the ribbon cutting for that new fire station.
38?
Fire Station 38.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think everybody's been noticed on that.
Yep, it's the 27th at 9 a.m. You should have got an invite already. If not, we'll get you one.
Okay.
So that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Mr. Tyson?
I don't have anything, thank you.
Okay. Madam Clerk?
I don't have anything.
I don't guess I have anything either. Anybody else want to add something, or? Nope. Are you ready to say goodbye? We're adjourned.